Okay. Well, it's 6 o'clock, so we're going to get started. There are a couple of other commissioners who are on their way. Hopefully we'll be here very soon. But I just want to welcome you all to the July 20th, 2023 meeting of the Humboldt County Planning Commission. I'm Chair Noah Levy. Before we get started, I just want to draw your attention to the first 2 pages of the agenda, which detail the ways in which one can watch or participate in the meeting remotely. As always, I will just remind you that if you are at a computer and do wish to participate in some fashion, the best way to do that is by Zoom. Then you are following the meeting in real time, and we can see when you raise your hand. You can also, of course, participate by phone. If you do choose to watch the meeting on the Humboldt LegStar website, that works well, but if you want to participate, you need to be advised that that feed is about 30 seconds or so behind real time. So if you're planning to raise your hand to comment, you'll need to get on the phone a little bit earlier than what that video feed suggests. And with that, I would ask you to join me in a salute to the flag. Laura, could we please get a roll call of commissioners present?
Commissioner Scavdahl?
Present.
Commissioner Levy?
Present.
Commissioner Landry?
Present.
Commissioner Mulder? Commissioner O'Neill? Commissioner Mitchell?
Present.
Commissioner West?
Present.
Okay, we do have a quorum, and I'm told that Commissioner Mulder will be arriving very shortly. That brings us to item C on the agenda. That's agenda modifications. Director Ford, do we have any modifications to the agenda tonight?
We do not have any modifications to the agenda. There are some supplementals up here that were provided relative to item G1, which is the We Are Up project.
Okay. Thank you. Then that brings us to item E, which is the consent agenda. As usual, I will run through the items on the consent agenda, and if any of them, if any commissioners or members of the public wish to comment on or have questions about those items, we will pull them for a later time in the meeting. Now, just be advised that on tonight's agenda, we've moved the pulled from consent section to the last section of the meeting so that it does not come before and delay the items that are scheduled under old business and new business. I discussed that with the director regarding tonight's meeting, but I just wanted to bring up to the other commissioners, it does seem to me that might be a better way to have the schedule in general, and I was wondering if we could at least try it that way for the next, several meetings and see if we agree that works better. Would you all be in favor of doing it that way in future meetings for the time being? Worth a try. There is some possibility, of course, that relatively simple items that didn't require much discussion but a little bit of clarification would be pulled and have to wait a long time. But on the other hand, it's been the case sometimes that so many items get pulled that items that were scheduled for a public hearing we don't even get to, and we'd like to try to avoid that. So in any case, with that said, I'll go ahead and see which of these items may require to be pulled. The first item on consent is the review and approval of the July 6th, 2023 action summary. Any comments or questions about that? I will just note that at the bottom of page 6, there was a typo misspelling Commissioner Scavdahl's last name. That's the only thing I saw. But if that could just be corrected. So. Sure. Okay, so we'll leave that on consent. Item 2 is the Carlotta Gardens LLC conditional use permit modification in the Carlotta area. That one is scheduled, or the recommendation is to continue the project to the August 3rd meeting. Is there anyone wishing to comment on the continuance of that project? Nope. Okay, we will leave item 2 on consent. The third item is the Humboldt Spirit Incorporated conditional use permit and special permit in the Garberville area, which is recommended for approval. Is there anyone wishing to comment on or discuss that item? Seeing none, we can leave that on consent. Item 4 is the Benbow Properties Incorporated zone reclassification in the Garberville-Benbow area. Anyone wishing to pull that for discussion or questions? Okay. We will leave that on consent. Just want to make sure I'm seeing the Zoom hands. Yeah, okay. So item 5 is Rock and Sky, general plan amendment and zone reclassification, also in the Garberville-Benbow area. Is there anyone wishing to pull that for discussion or questions?
I have questions on that one.
Okay. Then item 5, Rock and Sky, will be pulled for discussion. Item 6 is the Chuck Wright lot line adjustment, zone boundary adjustment, and joint timber management plan in the Corbel area. Is there anyone wishing to pull that for discussion or questions? Seeing none, we will leave that on consent. Item 7 is JBL Ventures LLC conditional use permit in the Arcata area. Anyone wishing to pull that for discussion or questions? Seeing none, we will leave that. And the last item on the consent agenda is the Oric Community Services District tank replacement project in the Oric area. Anyone wishing to pull that for discussion?
I just make a disclosure that years ago I did work on this project, but I don't believe it represents a conflict, and I'm not going to pull.
And 6 through 8 on the consent agenda.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, we ducked out for a second, but now we're back, so we missed like 15 seconds. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
If you would just restate what you
Just restate that. Okay, so with that, I'm ready to seek a motion to approve items 1 through 4 and 6, 7, 8 on the consent calendar.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move items 1 through 4 and 6 through 8 on the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Mitchell, seconded by Commissioner West. Any discussion on that motion? Okay, then I would invite a voice vote. All those who approve the consent calendar say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, motion passes unanimously. The consent items are approved. And that brings us to the old business section of the agenda. We have just one item there, which was held over from the end of last meeting. That is the Nancy Young special permit in the Elk River area. Mr. Lazar, would you kindly give us a staff report? Oh, wow. I am so sorry. I just realized that I skipped over item D, which is the public comment on non-agenda items. I am terribly sorry. So before we get to old business, let me invite any member of the public either in the room or on Zoom, who wishes to make a comment on any item pertaining to the Planning Commission's jurisdiction, but that is not on our agenda tonight, now would be the time for you to make such a comment. I see at least one person who would like to. Again, I apologize for skipping over that item, Mr.
Your
Swastika.
apology is accepted, and I know it was not intentional. Maybe. I'm not Zooming tonight. I'm here in person because this is a very important meeting for me to attend. I'm going to talk about some projects I wish to bring forward to you in the future. As I've mentioned for many times, I have a beautiful 16 acres out in Glendale. I have a related Christie Ranch pumpkin patch. And I also have 48 acres approximately that goes up behind the Trinity School up there. And I wish to do a project, and if we get to discuss another project very similar, but I'm talking about mine at this time. My project will be a project, I come before you very humbly. I have a skill set. I'm self-diagnosed autistic. All my grandchildren, or majority of them, are autistic, and I wish to provide for my grandchildren on these particular projects. So I will be bringing those forward to you, and to me, to do this is very important, because if you're a parent or a grandparent of an autistic child, I worry about them being cared for at such time as I'm gone. And so these will be designed to basically facilitate taking care of these very important treasures that I have in my life. And so when I bring those projects before you, I will do it with very heartfelt. I will be soliciting your support to bring those to fruition, and I look forward to working with John Ford and the rest of your staff to begin to engage on those. I've been waiting for a long time to really come to a consensus. What does Mother Nature want me to do with these beautiful things she gave me? Now I know. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the audience or on Zoom who wishes to comment on a matter that is not on our agenda tonight? Okay, seeing none, then I will close the public comment on non-agenda items. Apologies again for skipping over that, but we can now return to old business item F1, and that would be the Nancy Young special permit. And Mr. Lazar, please go ahead when you're ready.
Okay, Laura, I think we're sharing the screen if you can pull it up. Okay, thank you, commissioners. As Chair Levy mentioned, this is a continuation of a public hearing that occurred at the end of the last meeting. This is a project for a special permit to allow a bed and breakfast facility in the Elk River area. This next slide shows a photo of several of the buildings on the property. The building on the right is the primary home, and the building on the left is a detached accessory dwelling unit. Just a quick overview. We talked about this last time. The bed and breakfast provisions of the code have been infrequently used since their introduction in 1989. This is certainly one of the first proposals we've seen in the Elk River area, and one of our more recent years. The provisions of the code are pretty simple. They allow them in a variety of zones. Most of the zones that allow cottage industries allow bed and breakfast establishments. There are 4 requirements. One is that there's a maximum number of bedrooms set in the code, 4 bedrooms. The owner or operator has to reside on the premises. Any rooms that you use independent of the bed and breakfast count towards the total number of rooms, and none of the rooms can have kitchen facilities. And then lastly, there's a section that talks about meal provisions, and it seems to suggest that you're allowed to provide meals, but you can't provide meals to anyone besides people staying at the facility. So that's the entirety of our zoning regulations, just so you know. That's what we're looking at tonight again to review this project. Additionally, as we talked about last meeting, there are amendments to the zoning regulations currently underway, and there's been at least an initial kickoff meeting, and a draft ordinance that was released, and the first workshop was held on the 28th of last month. The regulations also, there was an urgency ordinance that was adopted by the Board of Supervisors on June 6th to try to kind of hold the line for the time being while these regulations were being put forward. That will be sunsetting. The board, this last Tuesday, chose not to renew that urgency ordinance. And importantly, the the current focus of the draft or amendments to the code is not bed and breakfast. It's really vacation rentals, a whole home being rented as a self-contained unit. So this project that we're seeing tonight is located on Elk River Road, approximately 4 miles from the junction with Herrick, 3 miles from Ridgewood. You can see it, it's kind of clipped, but the far right of the screen, I have another slide here. This is showing the neighborhood in which the project's located. The project's outlined in white. It's at the end of a private road, Elk River Court. In the case of zoning and land use for this area, the properties in the area are zoned for 5-acre parcel sizes, agriculturally zoned properties, and the land use designation is a rural residential agricultural land use designation specifying a density of 1 unit per 5 acres to 1 unit per 20 acres. And in that regard, you can view this assemblage of parcels as substandard, exceeding the density for the current land use and zoning. So it is legal nonconforming in that regard. And it predates our zoning regulations, important to note. Here's a satellite image showing the two parcels, or the two buildings I was mentioning earlier. The larger building, the primary, is on the top of the picture, and the detached cottage is on the bottom. And then this is the applicant's site plan. The yellow is showing bedrooms that were proposed. The proposal that we received and brought forward at the last planning commission meeting was to allow both buildings, both residences, to be used as part of the bed and breakfast proposal, and both have bedrooms in them that are proposed for use. As mentioned in the staff report, we could tell that several commissioners had some concern about the use of the detached unit, seeing as it is a standalone unit with kitchen and self-contained and could be leased independently. Consequently, we provided an alternative resolution for the commission to consider that would only approve use of the primary dwelling. So essentially, it would confine the bed and breakfast to that main dwelling. And if you reflect back to the 4 requirements that we went over a moment ago, that would fully conform. There'd be a kitchen, but only for the use of the person who lives there, which is the applicant, and the 2 rooms were within that wouldn't exceed the room count. The one thing that should be reiterated is that Mrs. Young is not interested in providing meals to guests, because that would require the kitchen be certified as a commercial kitchen facility. If the commission thought that was an essential requirement, that could be overcome by maybe a continental breakfast kind of option or something, but that's not the current proposal. And as we've talked about earlier, we don't see that section as requiring meal provisions, just saying that you can't serve it to anyone other than guests of the facility. So the current resolution and the recommendation of staff is to approve just the primary unit for the bed and breakfast. That would allow for a maximum of 2 bedrooms. It's a 3-bedroom house. And then it would preserve the ability for the detached unit to be used on a monthly basis as a long-term rental, which can occur regardless of what happens tonight. This is a photo of the primary residence seen at the end of Elk River Court. The property is currently being leased on a long-term basis, just so you know. That's kind of, I did a site visit 3 weeks ago, and that was the number of cars that I was seeing. And then lastly, I wanted to kind of go through some of the public comments we received and both support and opposition. These 2, slides and this show that a lot of the neighbors that use Elk River Court, there's approximately 14 parcels that rely on that, are in support of the project, whereas folks upriver, closer to the forks of the north and south forks of Elk River, are opposed, and that's what you see on the right side. And I've provided comments, and we believe the comments reveal that there's not a consensus about whether these are a good or a bad fit for this area, and so you see that in the comments that have been raised. Those comments summarized here. Some of the concerns is about conflict with the housing element, public safety, given the nature of the roads in this area, the lack of cell coverage, the adequacy of septic systems. Speaking with environmental health, it's not, it is an area that's challenged for septic systems. Existing road issues, loss of housing stock. There a lot of things that were provided in the public comments you received. None of them we believe are significant enough to automatically obligate that the project be denied, but they are worth considering. And to a certain end, I think that some of the concerns that were raised have been addressed with the applicant by revisions to their operations plan and trying to kind of get ahead of some of the issues that were revealed during past operation, because it's important to note that this is a facility that was operated before it was shut down. It was operated for about a year. These are neighborhood signatures of the folks that use the road showing support for the project, but it is important to note since the last hearing, there has been a withdrawal of support from one neighbor in particular who's also provided additional public comment. Their partner initially was in support and then withdrew their support. But with the exception of that property owner, most of the folks on the road that actually surround this area have showed support for the project, and we may hear from some of them tonight. With regard to CEQA, given that this is an existing residence and somewhat of a lateral in terms of the use versus short-term versus long-term rental, we don't see any reason to do additional CEQA analysis. We believe it qualifies for an exemption. We are recommending approval. Once again, important to reiterate and emphasize that there is a revised resolution. If you were to take staff's recommendation tonight, it would only approve use of the primary unit. There are additional conditions of approval that have been included I wanted to go over. There are conditions 10 through 13. The first 3, 10, 11, and 12 largely deal with 10 talks about having an inspection by someone from the building department ahead of occupancy. That's not something that's occurred with any of the unpermitted units throughout the county, but it is customary in jurisdictions that regulate these types of activities. Number 11 is having an inspection by the fire department to make sure there's adequate smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, egress functioning, egress hardware, those types of things. I spoke with Humboldt Bay Fire, and they say it's not uncommon. They do this for all hotel motel units, and they do it on an annual basis, so doing it once seems fitting given the type of use. And then number 12 is, in speaking with folks at the Environmental Health Division, there's tests you can do to check to see if a septic system is functioning or performing adequately, and that's essentially using water to load the system and make sure that it percolates and infiltrates at a certain rate. And given that people don't do these things or loop in the Environmental Health Division about the current state or function of their system, before allowing this use to be initiated, we felt like it was fitting, and Environmental Health says it's not an expensive test to do, and septic system operators like Steve Septic or whatnot can do it for fairly cheap. So we believe these should be standard requirements that would be applied to any rural bed and breakfast or vacation rental use, frankly, ahead of operation, because they make sure that health and safety issues are addressed and that the adequacy of private water or septic facilities is demonstrated prior to operation. And then the last condition speaks to the use of the detached unit and makes it clear to the applicant that it's only allowed to be used as a long-term rental and that the operator has to live in the residence that's used for the bed and breakfast, because that is what's required under the code. And it could be the applicant or their designee. It doesn't have to be the owner of the property. It just has to be someone living on the premises. And I think with that, you always have the option to change the conditions of approval, require further environmental review. Denial is always an option. We would always say that if you choose to go in that direction, give staff time to prepare findings before taking action. And then lastly, we have a suggested motion, and we're prepared to answer questions and dig deeper.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I will give the commission a chance to ask you questions before we open public comment. However, I just wanted to stop and note that Commissioner Mulder is present. Should we do another quick roll call attendance just to get that on the record? Yes, I think we should. If we could do that real quick.
Commissioner Scavdall,
Here.
Commissioner Mulder,
Here.
Commissioner Levy,
Here.
Commissioner Landry,
Here.
Commissioner O'Neill, Commissioner Mitchell,
Present.
Commissioner West.
Present.
Okay, great. We have 6 out of 7 here. Now, Commissioner Mitchell, did you have a question for staff?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It seems to me that the crux of the issue about what we heard last time versus the facts on the ground were that there was no way of separating out the kitchen in the ADU from the bedroom. Is that right? There's not like a door that can be latched or a way to not rent the kitchen?
Yeah, I don't have a detailed floor plan that I could, walk through with you, but I do think that the nature of the unit, it is all very close at hand. It's not something designed to be used in a concurrent basis. It's basically a self-contained residence that they were seeking to use the bedroom as part of the bed and breakfast.
Okay, and if it were configured differently such that it was just a bedroom they were renting, it would be appropriate under the bed and breakfast ordinance. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, or if, like, for instance, the kitchen was removed, that would certainly nullify that conflict.
Okay.
It is important to note it is detached, and the further you run afield of the common model, which is a one unit with lots of bedrooms, but as we looked at the code, you can see it doesn't say that it has to be all within the same residence. It just says up to 4 bedrooms. So there's flexibility in the code to consider a range of scenarios, but the kitchen was the bigger issue at the last meeting, it seemed.
So just a final follow-up question. Nothing would preclude them from applying under the vacation rental ordinance once it's developed. Meaning, here we say 30 days is the minimum length until such time as they apply to be a vacation rental. Is that correct?
That is correct. And just to illustrate that, if the vacation ordinance in its current draft form were adopted, it became the code, they wouldn't have any discretionary permit required for the proposal before us tonight. It would be a ministerial, principally permitted use. But that's just the first draft. It's not probably going to look like that one.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Yes, Commissioner Mulder.
So, in your staff report, you said that the applicant or designee would have to live on the premise, and I don't need an answer now, maybe at the end of public comment. What is that definition? Is that they stay there one night a year, or is there any type of, I don't need the answer now, just keep that in mind as you're hearing public comment and as we're hearing public comment, because that's a question that's kind of stuck with me. I've seen, like, hey, yeah, I live there, but, like, someone's there 2, maybe 3 days a year. So just throwing that out there.
Okay. Any other questions about the staff report before we open public comment? Commissioner Scabdall.
Just one other, and I think we're all trying to make sure we understand the difference between a bed and breakfast and a short-term rental. And my understanding the difference is that a bed and breakfast has an on-site host.
It is true that the vacation rental provisions that currently exist in the code that only are effective in Shelter Cove do not require a host. So that is a distinction that's worth noting. And the bed and breakfast, it is a clear requirement.
One of the things that's causing me some confusion is we have some FAQs on the county website on short-term rental ordinance, and there's a definition of a short-term rental, which are 2 things: a rental of an entire dwelling for 30 days or fewer, or a rental of 2 or fewer rooms of a dwelling with an on-site host for 30 days or fewer. That sounds like the same definition of a bed and breakfast in this case. Is that?
I'll step into that
Okay.
one. That is something we're struggling with, and we have been weighing. We're still very much in the process of defining or trying to define a difference between a bed and breakfast and a short-term rental. Many of the examples that we've looked at for short-term rentals, and I think Eureka is one of those, that and Arcata allows a short-term rental to be something that is occupied by the host and renting out individual rooms, which we would call a B&B, a bed and breakfast. And so part of the question is, if we go in that direction, should we even keep the bed and breakfast provisions in the ordinance? Should we try to define a difference between the bed and breakfast and a short-term rental? Should then the short-term rental only be something where the whole unit is being rented out. And then that raises another question in terms of if the bed and breakfast has an on-site host, that would have the least amount of impacts should the permit requirement be greater than what a short-term rentals permit requirement is. And so there's a whole slew of things that we're still working through. We've had one public meeting. We're currently in the process of revising that draft, and I think those FAQs were something that were developed fairly early on, and but it is part of the thinking process right now. And it's still a little murky. I apologize for that, but we're still working through it.
Okay, so as I understand it now, this application would qualify as a bed and breakfast because even though it's not serving breakfast, it has an on-site host and it's renting rooms. I do have a concern that I just don't want this to turn into some sort of a workaround on our short-term rental ordinance where people will be renting out bedrooms in their house as a bed and breakfast and not going through some process of getting a permit. So that's what my issue is. I'm trying to sort that out. So thank you.
Yes.
Absolutely appreciate that. And the bed and breakfast obviously does require a permit. And one of the things I wanted to say too is after we heard the testimony and comments really from the Planning Commission at the last meeting, we went back and thought, really that cottage is by definition a separate unit that's being rented out, which really is under any circumstance a short-term rental. Even though it'd be nice to just be able to use a bedroom and not the kitchen, it would be impossible to regulate that. And so with that being the case, take a very strict definition of what a bed and breakfast is and call the other one a short-term rental, recognizing the definitions with short-term rental still a little bit murky because we haven't finished that process yet, but the bed and breakfast definition is very much in place and very clear.
Commissioner Landry.
I'm not very familiar with these particular ordinances, so I appreciate all your expertise in sharing that with us. And I'm curious to the fact that we have a housing crisis in this community. How does that play into any of these ordinances?
Thank you. That is probably, well, there's two driving factors in addressing short-term rentals. One is to protect neighborhood character. Two is to protect housing stock. So it is very, very much of a factor, and one of the things that we're looking on is setting a limit on the number of short-term rentals that can be approved within the county so that we ensure to the extent that we can that housing stock is protected.
Okay, yes, Commissioner West.
Sorry. I have a question about I read that it looks like the proposed ordinance will come before the commission in September. Are you still looking at that?
Yes, we are looking to have a workshop with the Planning Commission on September 7th.
Great, good. Well, that's not far off. Meanwhile, I will just let folks know that there was one public meeting already on the draft short-term rental ordinance in late June. It is now available on the Humboldt County YouTube channel. So, even though that's very much not before us tonight, something you might want to go back and check out before we do have that workshop. If there are no other questions on the staff report, we will, of course, have plenty more chance to discuss this. I would now like to open up public comment. We did have some public comment at the last meeting, but this is a new hearing and a different recommendation for the proposal. So given that, anyone who commented at the last meeting is certainly welcome to comment again. And I would again invite the applicant, if she is with us. Oh, she's on Zoom. Yes. Well, then We always give the applicant the chance to speak first. She could go longer than 3 minutes. She could have 10 minutes if she wishes, although we do have a very full house and a lot of people waiting to speak on this and another item. So I would ask you not to take 10 minutes if possible, but Ms. Young, if you were available, I would invite you to go ahead and raise your hand. Or she's there. Okay. Unmute yourself. She's unmuted. Good. And you will again have a chance to answer the comments at the end of our public comment session on this item. But Nancy Young, please go ahead.
Thank you. I've attempted to write. Can you see me?
We're not actually seeing you, but we're hearing you fine.
I don't see on my Zoom screen a place to put my video on like I usually do on Zoom.
Oh, yeah. So we could promote you. Yes, that's a function of which part of Zoom. Yeah. Anyway, yes, we can change that, and you should be able to. You should then be able to turn on your camera. Okay, but now you're muted. Can you unmute yourself? We see you. And okay.
So I am still testing positive for COVID, which is why I'm not there. And given my mind is still a little murky, I've tried to write so I'm as short as possible. Steve, if you would give me a signal if I hit the 5 minutes, I would appreciate it, or 4 minutes maybe. So importantly, I want to reiterate my concern about maintaining the peaceful, quiet, natural, and healthy and beautiful setting that all of us who came to Elk River Court came here for. It's really, really important to maintain that for everybody, including me, including Mike, including all of my other neighbors. And my rentals will impact the number of cars, at least cars on the road, using the road more so, quite probably, if I'm renting long-term rather than short-term. I've committed to pay double my share of road maintenance if that is helpful. The dust impact on the first 5 houses on the road when drivers go too fast is a real concern. It's unhealthy, it's disrespectful, and it's totally unacceptable. I don't want to be responsible for dust blowing in anybody's house or hurting anybody's health in any way whatsoever. And because of my heightened awareness about this, 9 months ago, I started writing all renters 2 days before they were to come, explaining why this is so important and insisting that they really honor this requirement. And the day before they came and are coming, I call them personally and reinforce this point. My neighbors expressed appreciation for my concern and effort, and my request that they call me immediately if they witness someone driving too fast. And I've had one call since then in the 9 months from about a long-term renter on his very first day who was driving 20 miles an hour. And I immediately talked to him, and he and his wife, who are darling, are now crawling when they drive on the road. Furthermore, the driving speed requirement is reinforced further in the cottage and house rules, which I didn't used to have. Now I have them, and all new renters are required to read them and sign them. All renters must also register, including their car make, color, and license plate. So when a neighbor calls, that we can make sure which car it is, and I can immediately take action, or we can call another neighbor to make sure it's handled. I was told that Mike had a particular concern about when my guests first arrived, if they came really late, which sometimes if people are driving from Seattle or San Diego, it's hard not to get here late. So in response, to help Mike feel a little more comfortable, I will be communicating to B&B guests, if we're accepted to do that, a preferred check-in by 8 p.m. and no later than 9 p.m., regardless of where they're coming from. Regarding Mike's concerns that he hasn't spoken to here, but I'll just make two comments. One is he and his family were people we reached out to when we first came and invited them to dinner and for 4th of July, and my grandson and his daughter played. And I'm sorry not to have that level of relationship, and I feel very sad and compassionate about both the pain he is in almost constantly from his back operation and the anxiety that he's experiencing. And I will continue to care and be concerned about his family. Regarding Christie's concerns about early on, some of the renters, a few of them at any rate, walking in her forest, I felt very badly that I wasn't more on top of making sure that what we had written or are not telling new renters that was totally not our property and no trespassing. We are now telling all renters that, and we have 2 signs posted, and it's emphasized in the house and cottage rules.
Ms. Young, just letting you know, it's a little over 5 minutes. I'm not cutting you off, but I'm just asking if you could try to wrap it up soon.
Okay, I will wrap it up. I guess personally, one of the things I want to share, even though it's not related to the code at all, is that I'm in my 9th month since this process began. It began the first week in October. And each month I have actually gone a little bit in debt. And that's not the responsibility of the commission. It's my responsibility. But I happened to buy the house at the top of the market, and I had no idea that the inflation, would skyrocket, which has hit so many Americans. And I also had no idea that the utilities in the house would be over 1,000 several months of the year, really, really high. And I didn't anticipate mowing the field or flood insurance and several things that are unique to this property. So I am concerned about kind of being with the new proposal, going to the second room being a small bedroom with the shared bathroom compared to the cottage, even if I removed the stove in the cottage so it wasn't usable as a kitchen. I am concerned about being kind of on the edge of this being able to keep me in the house, and I just want to be honest about that. I will end and just say that I hope that regardless of what else is written, that you'll be able to feel who I am and my sincerity about all this, and the quality of the customers that I attract and this area attracts, that does so much for the community. And Gandhi said on the statue that's in front of the United Nations, he said, "My life is my message." And I want that for my life. That's part of my values. And those are also spoken and reflected in the volunteer work I did for the Dalai Lama in India before I came, and the work I am now developing here to help seniors of every age live vital lives full of deep meaning, connection, and contribution. So that's who I am.
Thank you very much, Ms. Young. And I will give you an opportunity briefly, if you wish, to respond at the end of all other public comment if there's anything you felt you need to clarify at that point.
I appreciate it.
But thank you. And so I will now open this up to, yes, Commissioner Mulder?
So I just want to clarify, you as chair, and the way I understand our rules is you can limit time for public comment. Have you considered or thought about that on this item or any other items?
I've considered it, but I thought for this item at least, I would go with the 3 minutes that we normally do, and maybe see how we get through it.
Sounds good. Just wanted to ask the question.
No, it's a fair question. Okay, I will now open it up to others to comment on this item, the Nancy Young special permit, starting with those in the room who may wish to comment. I will give you 3 minutes at maximum, but I would urge you to keep your comments shorter than that if you can, since we obviously have a full house and a lot of people waiting to speak on another item. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to comment on the Nancy Young special permit? Please approach the podium. I also see one hand up on Zoom, so we'll get to that after the in-person comment.
Commissioners, it's hard to limit ourselves to 3 minutes,
Oh.
especially when we waited 3 hours.
The podium's, the button's pressed. Is she coming through? Yeah, you're good. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
Okay. So my name is Christy Wrigley. This previously illegally operated B&B should not be permitted. It is contrary to promoting ag, which is in our general plan. It was contrary to the ADU unit, but has been revised, and that we appreciate. It creates a greater public health and safety risk for all the rest of us in Elk River Valley. It is an anomalous subdivision surrounded by big ag, timber, and dairy. It is in the 100-year floodplain, inundation zone, and it always was and will be. It is on a substandard lot of 1.5 acres where it's a 5-acre minimum. It is the last house on a private gravel road. It crosses a private wooden bridge that many emergency services won't cross. County planning characterizes those of us giving substantive reasons for not permitting this B&B, or just B, as living far away. That is a very urban and unnecessary way of viewing our community. All of Elk River Valley is connected by one road in and that same road out, and we pay attention. There are sub-communities such as Lower Elk River, Upper Elk River, and Boulder Road, but I consider everyone in Elk River a neighbor to watch out for, to help them wherever I can. Is their mailbox open? Is the garbage dumped over? Are there stray dogs? Who's on their property that doesn't seem familiar? And who drives too fast? And whatever else we can help. We identified exactly who attacked savagely my neighbor because our neighbors had paid attention. So we are our own safety net. Most supporters do live close by in the small 10-parcel subdivision. They signed a petition of support for Nancy for Nancy to stay in her home that she herself wrote. I want her to stay in her home, but not when it is detrimental to the neighborhood and the community. I live a couple of miles away, but I am her closest neighbor. I own that forest right behind her. She has gotten the understanding that her guests, paying or otherwise, are not welcome to go on my property. However, stipulations on paper are difficult to enforce, and trespass is very difficult, and I deal with it all the time.
Ms. Wrigley, if you could wrap it up, please.
Okay. Adding people adds to the septic system where there is a problem, because it has in the past been a pit system and it did not have a leach line. We need a more comprehensive B&B. And please, those gravel roads are so noisy and so obnoxious. Anybody living there is really aware. We're asking you to please not give Nancy the golden B&B award, and let's get a better policy.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Mulder.
Just to be equal, are we going to give every speaker about an extra 40 seconds, or I just want to make sure we have equality to all?
No, I'm gonna repeat that I'm gonna have to cut you off at 3 minutes. I'll give you a warning 15 seconds before that.
Okay, can we mute the microphone then at 3 minutes? Either we have a loose 3 minutes or a tight 3 minutes is what I'm asking.
Sure. I'll keep it tight.
Good evening. I sent in some additional pictures of the signs that are posted on our road and on the bridge that were left out of Mr. Lazar's presentation prior. And hopefully the visuals will enhance everyone's understanding of the neighborhood and indicate why it's not a good place for a bed and breakfast. I fully agree with Commissioner Scovdell's and West's concerns and comments. This really does have all the elements of a short-term vacation rental trying to slide in under the radar on a 25-year-old ordinance for bed and breakfasts. Just because there's no organized homeowners association here to prevent this from happening does not convey the right for it to occur. With that being said, I earnestly request that this type of special permit only be considered for approval to qualified applicants whose houses have public access. This is a private road. It always has been and always will be. A short-term rental permit should not be issued if the property is located on a private road, drive, or shared pier without written approval from all property owners responsible for the shared maintenance of the road, drive, or shared pier. Thank you all for your time that you've devoted to this issue.
Thank you, sir.
Ken Swatsky, I recommend a staff recommendation on this particular one. I think they've done a good job of mitigating the concerns. I do realize there are additional concerns. I'd be quite direct from the negativity regarding the road situation. Everything was mentioned. You might want to just go ahead and condemn the whole damn area and clear it all out if you want to go with that. People, you know, you have one bad kid in the neighborhood, they can cause as much problem. I strongly support the permit as brought forward by staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wishing to comment on this item?
Hi, my name is Sean. I'm Nancy Young's son. Couple things I wanted to bring up. The house area itself is sort of up on a plateau. The house and the cottage, and there's a little she shed, is not in the flood zone. The field down below is, which is at least 3 or 4 feet lower. We had that certified a little while back. One of the main things I wanted to emphasize is that compared to long-term rental, this in several ways has just equivalent or even less impact compared to long-term rental. And us, you know, operating it as sort of a 30-day or more long-term rental over the last 9 months has sort of proven some of those things. First of all, you have people who are there every day. And for both, especially the cottage, but also the master bedroom suite, You know, sometimes it's a couple and they each have a car and they each go to work or they're each on, you know, doing whatever. And so you have potential for twice as many cars, whether it's illegal for, like anybody can do, long-term rental or short-term rental. Short-term rentals are often just an individual or a couple with a single car, and it's not 100% of the time rented. Let's see. One of the comments I got, you know, in talking to neighbors is that they're worried about, you know, most of the clients, most of the people, customers are, you know, really good, but then you always get bad apples, and you can't prevent that. That's true for long-term tenancy too. I mean, you can have a renter or a homeowner, and they can be noisy, they can deal drugs, they can have junk all over the front of the yard, they can have turkeys running around, they can have, like my neighbors, an air compressor and a Harley Davidson to tune up occasionally, and you're stuck with them for months or years. I mean, there's bad apples either way. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was that she keeps scaling down this proposal in response to staff recommendations and public sentiment. But as far as the kitchen issue and the single unit issue, I think it feels like you guys mainly have opposition to that because it's a separate unit, because there is no conflict, like you were saying earlier, about the kitchen, you know, creating a conflict in the B&B ordinance as written in Humboldt County. It clearly says in the room.
Sir, just 25 more seconds.
Okay, yeah. But anyhow, but she's fine with, you know, she'd prefer to have the option to rent the room, at least to rent the cottage bedroom as a B&B, you know, but she's fine with doing the bedrooms in the house. But the difference is very much not the ordinance, it's more, I think, what you guys want to see done with the rest of the property or something. And I guess that's it.
I'm going to have to cut you off there.
Sure.
But thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Chairman, can I add one thing? 'Cause you made
No, I'm sorry, but you've already had more than the 3 minutes allotted, and we do have a busy meeting and a lot of people waiting to speak.
Okay, just want you to know that there are 3 other bed and breakfasts that are
Okay,
operating.
nope, that's enough. Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else in the room wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to close the in-person public comment on this item. I will, however, recognize Bobby Mullins, who is on Zoom and has his hand raised. Sir, you have up to 3 minutes.
Well, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Well, hello, our beloved Honorable County Planning Supervisor Commission. Thank you for all the work you do, first of all. And second of all, Nancy is my friend. I live on the first house, 7518 Elk River Court. I have no issues with what she does. It's her property. If she wants to rent it out for a B&B or whatever, that's her choice. I believe that she is an honorable, upstanding, and a beautiful, wonderful senior that has a magnificent plans for our communities. Some people have driven fast, AT&T vehicles, UPS vehicles, even some of our neighbors have driven fast down this road. I don't have a concern with that, because if you're driving fast, we just ask you not to drive fast. So that's all I have to say. I love Nancy. She's an amazing person, and I wholeheartedly support her endeavors. Thank you for your time. God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else on Zoom wishing to comment on this item? Ms. Young, would you like a very brief opportunity to respond to any of the other comments that were made? No? Okay. Well, I'm sorry. You're muted then. You are trying to speak.
Thank you. I don't think it's necessary.
Thank you, Ms. Young.
I appreciate the opportunity.
You're welcome. Okay, with that, I will close public comment on this item and bring it back to the commission for further deliberation. Commissioner West.
First, I wanted to thank staff for bringing back more options for us tonight. It's appreciated. And I am comfortable with removing the room in the cottage. So thank you.
Great. Commissioner Mitchell.
So I also appreciate taking an extra look at this. I felt like it wasn't approvable in its prior form. Listening to Ms. Young speak, it sounded like she was willing to remove the kitchen entirely or remove the appliances such that makes it a kitchen. I personally would be comfortable, based on the reading of the 4 criteria, to approve the 2 bedrooms, including the cottage, if she were willing to have that permanently removed. If not, and she wants to preserve it as an opportunity to take advantage of the upcoming short-term rental ordinance, I would word that additional condition such that she can do either or, not both. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Lazar.
Thanks. I just want to point out through the chair that should the commission choose to approve the original proposal with the requirement, as Commissioner Mitchell mentioned, to remove the kitchen, we would recommend that you incorporate the additional conditions that we've presented to you as part of that motion. So that's all.
Okay, thanks. Other thoughts?
I got a comment to the chair.
Commissioner Landy.
What you presented tonight is, different, and I don't have the same concerns regarding another loss of another house in our community. So thank you.
Commissioner West.
Beyond just the kitchen, I do have some concerns with it being a separate unit and not within the house. And also, given our housing shortage in the area, I'm real reticent to set a precedent of encouraging people to remove what would be available housing.
I'll jump in and say that I think I agree with Commissioner West. I mean, since we will have a short-term rental ordinance becoming law, hopefully within 2 or 3 months, the opportunity to rent out the cabbage under the terms of that ordinance will remain available to Ms. Young, or she could at that time. But I think one of the things that I really hope that ordinance will do will be to set a clear definition of the difference between bed and breakfast and short-term vacation rental. But again, as has been said, at this time, I would be comfortable approving the B&B proposal for the 2 bedrooms in the primary residence. Commissioner Scavdal, I think I saw you. Yes, Ivor.
Thank you. I'm not supportive of including the ADU as part of the bed and breakfast. And I'm wondering if the commission would consider adding a condition to have first night check-in or check-in occur not later than 9 p.m. as offered by the applicant.
Commissioner Mulder.
So, as far as the cottage, I have hesitation for the idea of removing the kitchen or any of that kind of stuff, so I'd rather not include that. And I'm not leaning heavily on an ordinance that has yet to even pass or not pass, so I'm not even weighing anything that way. I'm just thinking, you have your house. I hear there's a lot of concerns for housing more in the northern Humboldt area from the comments I've heard over the last 3 months. So I'm not okay with using the ADU or cottage as part of the B&B. And I'm really hesitant on having the check-in thing. I know many of people, myself included, I've gone on a long road trip. unfortunately, you have kids, you have to make stops, and you get into your B&B at 11:30 at night, and that's just so. For me, I'm hoping that from what she gave us in testimony, that she's really doing her due diligence to rent to types of people that won't be disrespecting the neighborhood in the late evening. So I'm not comfortable with the 9 o'clock.
Other comments? Or does somebody want to make a motion?
Just to be clear, our suggested motion is as it's listed on here tonight. This isn't from the last one. All right, on that note, I adopt we move the resolution, which does the following. Finds the project exempt from environmental review processes of the CEQA guidelines, make all required findings for approval of the special permit, approves the Nancy Young special permit as recommended by staff, and the recommended conditions of approval that were explained to us.
Thank you, Commissioner Landry. So just to be clear, that for everyone out there, that is recommending that we approve the use of 2 bedrooms within the primary residence as a bed and breakfast without imposing any additional condition on the check-in time.
That is correct.
Okay, that's a motion from Commissioner Landry. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second by Commissioner West. Any discussion of that motion? I'll just say that I appreciate that Ms. Young is offering to set a 9 o'clock check-in time. I think it may well be a good thing for her to do that as the Airbnb host, but I would agree that I don't think we need to make that a condition of the permit, in my view. With that said, may I get a voice vote on this motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed, say nay.
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 Was that Commissioner Scavdall and Commissioner Mitchell? Okay. The motion passes with 4 in favor and 2 opposed. Yes, and with that, it is 7:08. We have a big item coming up, so I'm going to call for a 10-minute recess before we come to the We Are Up item. So if you could be back by 7:18, please. All right. Thank you all for your patience during the recess. I'm going to call us back to order now, and we're moving on to Section G, public hearings. The first and only item under public hearings is the We Are Up conditional use permit and special permit in the McKinleyville area. Before we get a staff report, I think I would just like to make my own ex parte disclosure. I did not visit the property. I did, however, speak with Tom Wheeler, the executive director of EPIC, because EPIC had been notified of some concerns about wetlands. And so Tom did some investigation. He spoke to a couple of people who were more familiar with the property and the project, including a member of the Department of Fish and Game staff. It is the opinion of Tom Wheeler and EPIC that the wetlands that will be removed in this property are of fairly low quality, and that the mitigation required to create other wetlands will be a net improvement to the actual wetlands in that field. And all in all, EPIC is in favor of this project.
I'm sorry, you're conveying information that's not from a direct source right now.
Okay.
This is about your interactions with people associated with the project.
I'm sorry, I thought I was just supposed to convey what I had heard from a contact on this project.
Okay.
So I apologize. I was only trying to do what I thought was required of me. Counselor?
I believe in this situation, you're allowed to state that they conveyed their opinion to you, but you don't have to state what the opinion is because they have the ability to make public comment themselves.
I apologize. Okay, I thought I was supposed to convey the substance of the opinion that was conveyed. But
I don't think it's absolutely necessary. Was it written down communication?
it was not.
It was all oral?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
So, forgive me. I really just was trying to follow what I thought was the letter and the spirit of our procedures. But enough said. Is there anyone else who wishes to make any ex parte disclosures?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to report that I had an opportunity to take a look at the site and was toured by Mary Keene. Thank you.
I also spoke to Tom Wheeler and heard the exact same thing.
Okay.
Chair, I continue to work on a very limited part-time basis for GHD. Although I had no direct involvement on this project, I am a GHD employee and they are the applicant's representative. So I believe I need to recuse myself from this meeting.
Okay. Thank you for that. We will notify you when we get through it. Okay. If there's nothing else of that nature, then I would invite Mr. Johnson to give a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the We Are Up conditional use permit and special permit application. And it's located in McKinleyville at the end of Weir Up Lane. Sorry, which one? Thank you. Project site is approximately 15.5 acres. It's at the end of Weir Up Lane, south of Sutter Road, east of Central, in unincorporated McKinleyville. The project includes several key features. There will be residences and a community center. Some of those residences are in the community center building. It's a 4-story building that's proposed, consisting of a main level, or the ground floor, with a dining room and a multi-purpose room and kitchen. Then a mezzanine level, which is a smaller floor area than the main level, because it has an open area overlooking the main level, and it has several smaller multi-purpose rooms. And the upper level, or the third level, which is 17 residential units and some common space. And then the top level, or the top floor, 18 residential units and common area. And 10 duplex and triplex units, and 5 single-story townhouse units, for a total of 50 living units that would house up to 69 residents. The project includes special events, up to 24 per year, that fund the project long-term. And there would be anywhere from 51 to 250 persons, that would be 215 persons, that would be the cap at the special events. They could be held within the main level of the community building, or outdoors at the south end of the site, southwest corner of the site. There will be a greenhouse that's 2,880 square feet. That's actually phase 1 of the project, and would include power to the greenhouse and a gravel access road. Everything else is phase 2, and that would start next year. So phase 1 this year, phase 2 next year. There will be a garden, a barn, about 1,200 square feet, barn, and an orchard. The balance of the site would remain open with wetlands and walking trails. There are 8.6 acres of mapped wetlands. About a quarter acre would be affected by the project. So this is the project site. It's a large site, about 15.5 acres, but almost all of the project features are in the westerly 1/3 of the site to avoid the wetlands. The area in brown shading is wetland that would be filled by the project. That's about a quarter acre. The green shaded areas are compensation for that loss of wetland. Let's see. So the main building is here, the community building. And I'll tell you more about that in a moment. And then these are the duplexes, triplexes to the south. Up here are 5 single-story townhome type units. And down at the southwest corner is the orchard, the greenhouse, and over here is the barn. So, and there are 132 parking spaces on site. Thanks. Okay, this is the a closer detail on the buildings. So at the upper left is, well, we'll start on the right side of the figure. This is the main level or ground floor. So this is the multi-purpose area and the kitchen. And these are the duplexes and triplexes, and a little more detail on the townhomes. And on the left side is the mezzanine portion of the building. So this area would be open, and this is the floor area of the mezzanine. And then these units are second story, these 3 of the duplexes and triplexes. Oops. Okay, the upper level on the right, or the 3rd floor, is of the main building is residential, and the top level is residential, and there are a mix of 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and studio units. This is the massing study. So this shows the conceptual view from the ordinal points of the compass, obliquely looking at the project at the west end of the site. And the applicant's architect is here tonight, and I believe he'll have more to show you on that. Okay, the existing zoning, or rather the land use designations, it's in the McKinleyville Community Plan. The largest portion of the site is designated residential low density. It would allow from 1 to 7 units per acre. The westerly end of the site is designated residential medium density, would allow for 7 to 30 units per acre. And then the upper left corner is designated commercial services. That happens to be where it's dedicated to parking for the project. The zoning, nearly all of the site is zoned R1, or residential 1 family, with a wetlands combining zone, and then the upper left corner is zoned community commercial. Related to the zoning, the zoning code, or Humboldt County Code Section 314-85, allows for quasi-public use in the R1 zone subject to CUP. Another section of the code, 314-52, states that a nonprofit is one type of quasi-public use, and the proponent is a 501c3 nonprofit. So the applicant has applied for a conditional use permit based on this. A special permit is also requested to exceed the maximum building height. The building is proposed to be 45 feet high. The R1 zone allows for 31-foot high structures, but another section of the code states that building height may be exceeded with a special use permit, and that's the request. A special use permit to exceed the building height by 10 feet. Also, per special permit is required to modify wetlands. And since quarter acre will be filled and recreated or restored at a higher ratio, that requires a special permit. So these are the entitlements requested: conditional use permit and a special permit for two things. A CEQA ISMND was prepared and circulated. 14 mitigation measures were identified addressing water quality, air quality, biological resources, cultural resources, greenhouse gases, and transportation. All impacts are mitigated to a less than significant level. The document was circulated for 30 days. Only one comment came from an agency that was CAL FIRE. They thought there would be some taking of forest, and when they understood that there wouldn't be, they said that's not, they withdrew that comment. So there were a lot of public comments. So basically no agency comments, but there were 87 comments on the project that came in before the CEQA review period and during the CEQA review period, 87 in support of the project. There were 11 comments during the public review period opposed to the project. And then in the last week, there were 3 in favor and 3 opposed. And all of these are attached to your staff report. The comments were wide-ranging on the ISMND, and they're grouped generally in 8 areas in your staff report, but they could actually be condensed a little more in terms of the concerns of the neighbors. These are all of those. 10 of those were from neighbors on Weir Up Lane on the other side of the project, and 1 was not a resident of Weir Up Lane. But the main concerns had to do with biological resources, that is the wetlands, and the project biologist is here. I'm going to let him tell you all about that. And then the other is the community center and events. These were the concerns of the neighbors. And what neighbors were concerned about regarding the community center and events is traffic and noise generally. So one of the concerns related to traffic is that the ISMND should have analyzed vehicle miles traveled, which it didn't. And the reason it didn't is because the project with the events, we found does not reach the threshold of a VMT analysis of 110 trips per day for several reasons. And we can talk about that further if you want to know about that. But the traffic study was done in accordance with CEQA, and it didn't trigger a VMT analysis. Noise was a concern because of the events mainly. And so, as was described, there'll be 24 events per year, ranging from 51 to 215 people. Some of these will be inside the building, some outside the building. In the winter time, they'll probably be inside the building. It's projected by the applicant that probably 10 of those would be weddings or wedding receptions. And so there could be amplified music. The general plan, and if you don't mind, I'm going to just look at my staff report that talks about that. Sorry about that.
Yeah, if you could speak a little closer to the mic, that'd be great.
Of course. The general plan sets performance standards for short-term noise of 65 dBA from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. in the R1 zone, which is this project. And the project is proposed to conclude all events by 10 p.m. And it's also a recommended condition that there be no event past 10 p.m. But the general plan allows for an exemption to this noise standard during the period 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. For temporary events in conformance with an approved conditional use permit, which this project would have. So staff believes that the exception can be justified due to the relative infrequency of events. It's not going to become part of the ambient noise. It's going to happen 24 times per year maximum. And at the southerly end of the site, as far away from the homes as the site would allow, or within the building. I think that concludes the staff report. Yes, sir.
So I believe that this general location is in the flight path for our airport's main runway, the ILS approach on runway 32, which is what's active 95% of the time. Do we have a decibel level of what occurs when planes fly over the project site?
Well, I did look for that, and I didn't see them extended, the contours extending this far out. But that's correct. So Highway 101, Central Avenue, which is not far away, and the airport are the greatest noisemakers in that area. But no, the noise contours for the airport didn't appear to reach the project site.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on the staff report? Commissioner Landry.
Yeah. So when you were showing us the area that will be filled, and then there are restoration or mitigated areas, I was curious if your model was to scale, and if you had an idea of what the size of the mitigation areas versus the size of the proposed site.
Sure. So the area of wetlands that would be taken by the project is approximately 1/4 acre. I think it's 100.
Mr. Johnston, if you could just keep it close to your. Thank you.
Sorry, yeah, 1/4 acre, and that's the area in brown. If we could bring that up. Thank you. So, yeah, the area is shaded in brown is the area that would be filled, and the area in green, the areas 4 polygons, would be the creation areas, and they would be created at a 1.3 to 1 ratio, so a little more than what's being taken. This could be modified based on 401 and 44 permits, though, if required. Increased, rather.
Gotcha. And thank you for that answer. And then, am I to understand that there are 2 conditional permits being requested? One being for the heightened of to 45 feet, as opposed to what I believe you said 31? Special permit. Okay,
sure.
Pardon.
Yeah, special permits. Well, I'm just calling them one special permit for both.
Okay, so there are 2 items in that.
Yeah, conditional permit for one and for the project, and then a special permit for the height and the wetlands. So 2 items under the special permit.
And it was my understanding that the special permit also related to the use of the community center. Is that accurate?
That's the CUP, the conditional permit. Yeah.
Pardon. So I'm getting my terminology mixed up. Okay, that's what I needed.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Mitchell?
I was hoping you could clarify. So it sounds like they're asking for something out of the ordinary to build higher. Was that their original project intention, or was there a specific reason why they're asking for that?
I've only known that as part of the project. At the start, I didn't know it would take a special permit, but then it became clear, and that was part of the application then. But that was always their intent.
Okay.
Sure. Just to add, the application was submitted with them proposing to build it to 45 feet in height. And so, as Mr. Johnston said, that is an exception to the height standard of the zone, which does require a special permit. So that all was, from when it was submitted to the county, was part of the project.
Well, I guess, is it fair to say that they could build the project without that request, but to get the same amount of square footage, it would have to expand into a bigger footprint and perhaps have more impacts on the surrounding neighborhood and wetlands?
I think that's a fair thing to infer, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for staff at this time? If not, I would like to thank you for that report, Mr. Johnston. If you could, yes, thanks, give us back the screen. I would like to open it up now for public comments, just to get an idea of if we can accommodate 3 minutes per speaker. Could I get a show of hands of those people who do intend to speak tonight? Okay, so I think that honestly we may not be able to afford 3 minutes per speaker. But I will certainly give you 2 minutes. So I would ask you to try to keep your comments to 2 minutes apiece, and to try to facilitate moving us more quickly through that. If you could start to get up and sort of cue, and yes, please. I'm sorry? Yes, I'm so sorry. Yes, I'm so sorry. As always, I'm going to first invite the applicant to make a presentation if you wish, and you are not limited to 2 minutes. You can have up to 10 if you need it.
Okay. Hi, I'm Mary Keene. I'm the founder of We Are Up and Cypress Grove Cheese. I started Cypress Grove in 1983, excuse me, as a single mom with 4 daughters, and I'm here tonight at 75. Still the mother of 4, but grandmother of 9, and the guardian and caregiver of my 15-year-old granddaughter who has autism. The planning department and our team have given you documentation about the land and the studies and specifics, but I want to share a bit about the heart of the project. It's rooted in not only in love of our own families, but trying to find solutions for many critical needs in the community. 13 years ago, my family, faced with my mother's rapid decline after my stepfather died, helped her move to Humboldt County. We didn't think she would live very long, and surrounded by her family and grandchildren, she surprised and thrilled us and lived to her 96th year. 5 years ago, I had the unexpected privilege of becoming the guardian for my granddaughter who has autism. Surrounded again by love, family, and community support, we've watched her skills multiply. When she moved in with me at age 10, she could not shower alone. She couldn't use a microwave to make a cup of tea. She didn't understand basic math. She now considers herself a business owner because she made cookies and lemonade and sat at the end of our driveway every weekend, waved at every car that drove by, and sold enough cookies to earn herself a coveted Apple Watch, which she was able to research the various models, find one within her own budget, and program it herself. It was watching these life-changing interactions between my mother and her grandchild, my granddaughter and her family and support that helped us design this innovative model. It's a model that doesn't exist anywhere in the United States, but we've seen it work in practice. We know that when guided by an intermediate generation, so much good can come from creating an integrated community such as this. A community where seniors are not siloed in senior housing, people with disabilities isolated and hidden out of sight, and students and visiting medical professionals in dorms are unable to find any housing at all. We're the first generation trying to solve these problems.
of how and where our loved ones with disabilities will live and thrive when we're gone. A generation ago, kids would have been institutionalized. But thankfully, through the Lanterman Act, all those institutions have been shut down. But sadly, when they closed, there wasn't a solid working plan about what would replace them. And that is falling on us, the families and parents of seniors and folks with disabilities, families who already have a heavy load. We're not developers, we're families. I cry all the time. This is nothing. Everybody here knows me that this is just my biology. I'm so sorry. But what's going to happen to our kids? We want them to be safe when we're gone. And without We Are Up or something similar, they will not be safe. I passed out some data about abuse and things that happen to kids. They're 4 times as likely to be abused. It's horrific. It's happened to my own granddaughter at school. We have no paid staff. Our volunteers have donated over 4,500 hours in less than 2 years. We had our first board meeting less than 2 years ago. We've been funded entirely by donations. We have the land for this great infill project. It's purchased. We have purchased additional parking. We've worked on our plot plan several times to lessen wetland impacts. We at one point had it coming around and we had taller houses. This will allow us to keep over 80% as open space as a community benefit. We not only care about the project, but the land. We've held community meetings and completed the huge stack in front of you in less than 2 years. We hope you'll weigh the real needs of our community's most marginalized people when you make your decisions tonight. It's a replicable model that will bring an option for many families in Humboldt County who now have none. There is no available housing for people with disabilities. I'm sure you can see by the number of letters of support, it has really broad cross-section support. And we know that is rare these days, but it comes from the fact that autism and other disabilities don't discriminate based on your political, your economic, or any of your other factors in your life. They affect us all equally. In fact, now 1 in 22 kids in California have been diagnosed with autism by age 8 alone. And so, I mean, that speaks to the need, but it doesn't speak to what's happening in the future. I mean, the parents and grandparents and caregivers get older. I mean, it's a huge financial burden for the state. Lack of accessibility for housing, access to the social structures of society and equity in the workplace plague many seniors and people with autism and other disabilities. We hope you'll agree and pass as presented. And thanks for listening. And I'd like to introduce Misha Schwartz from GHD, who's going to do all the serious stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I did have a little more to talk to, but I want Cash to present the massing analysis they did. I'll find it interesting. But Misha Schwartz, I'm one of the agents on the project. I work for GHD, got 36 years experience in wetland delineating, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions that you may have on the wetland delineation, wetland science, or the mitigation plan. And this time I'm going to turn over to Cash to show you a presentation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, Director Ford.
Good Chair, excuse me, Cash. The applicant actually can have 15 minutes, and I think we put 10 up there.
Okay, I thought 10 might be enough, but yes, they can have up to 15, so sure,
So
we can go
now
another
it comes
5.
to my turn, you have more time. Okay. All right, and my name is Cash Bujay. I'm the architect for Mary. I've had the pleasure of knowing her for like 25 years now, working on various projects with her. This project is really close to our heart on many levels, and I was really honored that she asked me to help her with it. One of the factors of this project, Misha just mentioned, and you all noticed, it has been the constraints of the wetlands on the site. And as we kept doing the various site studies with the different number of units that were required, we found out more and more that we had to actually limit our footprint, kind of like how Brian Mitchell was mentioning, and that therefore the height of the structure went up. At the same time, we noticed that we were taking too much of the property that was buildable, unconstrained with parking. So we negotiated with the neighbor to the northwest and purchased that portion of the 60 feet to the northwest so that we can actually put the parking area in an area that's already impacted, filled, and whatnot. So I did prepare a massing model because when we were going through the conversations about the height and some of the concerns of how the building would feel in the context of the neighborhood, and if it's okay and it's ready with Cliff, maybe we can go through that. Because, site plans are great, but it's nice to be able to get a sense of potentially what the mass of the structure is going to be. Again, we really try to put majority of the buildable area here, there it goes, on that RM area of the property and leaving the most of the parcel open regardless of the wetland. So here's the site looking at how the building structure is going, and we looked at different various cottage studies. We actually had 2-story units there along the north side, but we lowered the cottages and made 1 story so that we honor the view of the neighbors to the north. And you can see the mass of the main building as it relates to the structures along the central. Here you can see how the road comes down and slopes down into a drop-off area that becomes the gathering for the outdoor. Again, here you can see how it relates to the height of the buildings to the west. So I just wanted to share that because sometimes site plans are just not adequate. Even elevations are not necessarily, they don't necessarily convey the actual project and its look. And I'm here available if you have any additional questions. And I don't know if Misha wants to follow up.
This is me again, Misha Schwartz, GHD. So, yeah, this wetland delineation took place over 18 months, spring, summer, winter, fall, and visited the site multiple times, which actually is quite unusual. Normally, we just visit a site once and we leave, so that was nice. Dozens of soil pits were dug through the property, including installation of monitoring wells and monitoring of those monitoring wells this year, and including a lot of soil pits and hydrology monitored from that as well. The wetland delineation has been accepted by the Corps of Engineers, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and the Regional Water Quality Control Board. There's one remaining issue of a stormwater facility on the property. That stormwater facility is an active facility. It is within an MCSD easement and it drains drop inlets, and the Corps of Engineers is not going to regulate that facility, and we're working with the Regional Board and Pat Kaspari with MCSD whether or not it will be regulated by the Regional Board. If it is, it will be mitigated at 1.3 to 1 creation as stated in the mitigation measure in the ISM&D. And then last but not least, we are mitigating at a total ratio of 1.8 to 1. 1.3 to 1 is creation, where we're creating wetlands, including a deeper pond as asked for by Michael Van Hattem, CDFW. That will be breeding habitat for northern red-legged frogs, which are actually juxtaposed to Mill Creek. And then we're also planting 0.5 to 1 acres of riparian habitat along the current Mill Creek riparian corridor. I'm here to answer other more detailed questions on many of the special studies that GHD was involved in, including any questions you may have on wetlands. Thank you.
Thanks. Are there any questions from the commission at this time for Mr. Schwartz or the agent?
So on the map that we were shown, the 3-dimensional map, it appeared that most of the project lay outside of the viewscape of the closest neighborhood. But there were a few homes that were sort of on the other side of their fence. It appeared that there was topo lines. Can you confirm that that's down gradient? And do you know what that differential is in terms of if it's a a 12-foot structure, but it's 6 feet lower in elevation, what's sort of the net impact?
And that may be something Cash wants to answer, but yes, those are topographically lower than the houses to the north, correct? And Cash can give you some exact, probably, analysis of that. Did you have a wetland question for me, or was it related to that? So maybe I'll give it over to Cash to answer that specific question. Thank you.
Thank you.
The finished floor between the houses above on the north side and the cottages that we are proposing is about 10 feet from the finished floor. So the roof lines would probably be 6 feet or so at most, depending on what sort of a pitch we put on the roof. The ridges would probably be about 4 to 6 feet above their finished floor. If that makes sense from the topo lines, you can.
So that community had fences along all of it.
Yes.
Do you believe that much of the cabins would be above the fence line, or approximately?
Some of the mass of the roof will be sticking above the fence lines. Yes, because the fence line is below their finished grade, from where the deck and the house is. Yeah.
Okay, but it's not a substantial.
No, not with
degradation.
That's why we actually had originally 2-story residences there and townhouses, and we went back to the 1-story cottages, and we added the height to the main structure in order to be able to accommodate
And
that.
you made that change in order to accommodate community concerns?
Yes, and also for the property, it looks better. Yeah.
Commissioner Landry.
I had a question around the conditional use permit in the community center. Was there some reason, and one is that primarily for the tenants and the tenant use and activities, or a community thing? And I was wondering how and why that is fitting into the overall project. If I can get a little more background on that.
The various model. Okay.
That's probably a question for me, and it's about the.
Sure.
What we want to do is not keep our kids with special needs and our seniors isolated. So this is an idea that I've seen when I was traveling in Europe a lot, where you have events where people come together and they get exposure, and also we don't want to be fundraising forever. This is going to be a huge cost. You know, care of special needs people is expensive, and we don't want to always be on the public dole. We want to be able to do what we can to support ourselves. And part of that will be having special events. Part of it will be having classes. My granddaughter's really into fish. I've talked to people whose kids have special interests, so we can mix folks up. And like a senior might help my granddaughter go to the grocery store and not buy all chips, but she might be able to carry their groceries home. So we want that kind of intermingling of generations, and having families being able to come and join for breakfasts or dinners or whatever. And we had a fundraiser last year. We had to go to Blue Lake. And there was, you know, no place in McKinleyville that could host that. So we think that's a really great use of a space that can have multi-uses.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Mulder.
Can I have, excuse me, ma'am?
Yes.
I have a follow-up question
Sorry about that.
through the chair. So correct me if I'm wrong, the way I read through this packet, I was viewing what I saw the community center is also not just to be a benefit for the residents, but also a way to generate money to maintain and keep the whole operation going. Is that correct or incorrect? Okay.
Yeah. And to be a community benefit as well, so people could come in and use it. I mean, you know, Rotary events or something of that nature. But our folks with disabilities could do something there. They can have small jobs. I mean, a lot of it is integration. So we have the gardens, a commercial kitchen where they could learn to cook a meal and serve people, job training, all kinds. You know, it's really a multifaceted, and it isn't just housing. It's not just a community center or just an ag thing. It's a whole integrated care package that works together, and they need to be together.
Thank you for that. And one follow-up question,
Sure.
the way I was reading through, if that community center was taken out of the project, would it make it very challenging to operate this housing and also provide the educational opportunities, educational and social opportunities for the residents?
Be impossible.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Keene. Any other questions at this time from commissioners? We can of course, ask the applicant or her agents to answer questions later, but with that, I would like to now open up public comments. Again, due to the time and the number of people, I'm going to limit it to 2 minutes each. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. I'll keep it really short. My name's Ken Hammock. Don't you love this project? I do. I'm a resident of McKinleyville. I have 3 businesses in McKinleyville. I've worn a number of hats. I've been the chair of the Arcata Chamber of Commerce. I was a moderator for State of the McKinleyville a couple years ago. John was there and a few other people talking about our future. I think this is really much in line with McKinleyville's future. I really admire Mary for her vision and this project in particular because, as you know, I'm a futurist. I try to look out far into the future. Mental health has never been one of the top 3 issues. 40 years of doing this, it's one of my top 3 now. And Mary's solution, and We Are Up in McKinleyville, is a replicable model. So I'm really honored to stand before the microphone and just tell you today, I really believe in this project. We all should believe in it. It's a move in the right direction. It's opening up the mental health and wellness component of our community to all of us instead of hiding it and putting it away. And I think the last thing I'll just say is, I've been there 2 times now. It's a beautiful property. It's a healing property. And so the wellness that would take place for the visitors, daily visitors, the people that would reside there, is going to be really enriching for not just them, but for our neighborhood in McKinleyville, just to see what we could do with our community and be a leader. So thank you for your time, and I think Mary's the futurist.
Thank you.
Ken Sawatsky, as some of you know, I spend a lot of time in this room at this particular dais. And as people speak here, if you're not as comfortable as me, you can just say ditto to what the person said before me, and that speeds things along. The sooner we get this resolution and get this passed, the better. Mother Nature loves this project. I stood at this and spoke one time when all the educators from Humboldt County were in here speaking. They said what a burden the autistic are on us for education. And they didn't get a clue. They it's a spectrum. Some of us do need more needs than other ones. And I had to give them a story, and I'll relate this really quickly. I said, my grandson, he twills. And if you know what twilling is, that's how they burn off their energy, or they tend to. And there's all kinds of different ways of doing it. And I said, when he's doing that, he's like a nuclear fusion reactor. And when you guys, and this is cumulatively in the whole room, when you guys think you're like Harbor Freight flashlights with bad batteries. So I really push this forward. It's a model that's going to work. I'm going to be bringing other things forward, maybe here and in Mexico. And it's just such a pleasure to be here tonight and have my 57 seconds left on the clock.
Thank you.
Yes, my name is Rowetta Miller, and I'm a retired special education teacher, and I'm a very active member in the Fieldbrook community. And I've got to know Mary Keene through Fieldbrook. And what an amazing woman she is. She's done a lot of research on the We Are Up project, and I'm not a speaker, as you can tell, but I do believe in Mary Keene, and she has a wonderful vision, and she's done the research on the vulnerable population and raising her granddaughter. She has just done an outstanding job. And I dealt with a lot of autism, Asperger's, a lot with physical needs, intellectual, developmental. I've even had gifted children in my special ed program. So that tells you we're all human. We have all different kinds of aspects. But this is going to be such a wonderful thing, and I strongly support We Are Up. And I hope that you can show wisdom and support this worthwhile project as it meets a critical need for the housing in Humboldt County and McKinleyville. Let's put ourselves on the map. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Claudia Lima, and this is my son Christopher. He's age 26. He has Down syndrome. He's nonverbal, but if he could speak, he would have a lot to say about the benefits of this project. Since his birth, I've been a strong advocate not only for Christopher, but for all of his peers. I've served on the Area 1 Board and the State Council for Developmental Disabilities. I was the area manager for Humboldt County Special Olympics for 6 years. I currently serve on the Community Advisory Board for the Cal Poly Humboldt Adaptive PE Master's Program. That's a mouthful. And I'm also a board member of the We Are Up. So based on my experiences, I know firsthand there's a dire need for this project in this county. We have looked out of the area for housing for Christopher, but Humboldt County is his home. And McKinleyville is a very welcoming community and the perfect place for this project. During COVID, we were fortunate to have a logging camp on South Fork Mountain. Christopher is very social, and he was able to have a wealth of human interaction with our logging crew during that time. But many of his peers were not so lucky, and because of the isolation, some are still in counseling to this day. The community center is an integral part of this project. Christopher and most of his friends, they don't have driver's license, much less cars. The fact that public transportation is so close is another plus to this project. Transportation is a huge problem for our people. Many are unable to participate in Special Olympics, unified sports programs at Humboldt, or any other extracurricular activities because of transportation. To have a place to go with easy access will enhance their social lives immensely. Our folks and their families need a safe place to gather, work, and to celebrate without judgment. That's what our community center is all about. And although our children have special needs, they have the same wants and desires as most everyone. They want relationships and a sense of purpose. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Heather Bergen, real estate broker and member of the executive committee of the Humboldt Association of Realtors. I am here on behalf of the Humboldt Association of Realtors. We are pleased to support We Are Up community project that is planned in McKinleyville. We recognize the crisis confronting our fellow citizens living with no place to call home. We seek to analyze and address the various issues of homelessness and its effects on our community. Using understanding and inclusive resolutions, we work closely with service providers, local government, and enforcement agencies to help propose solutions that will address everyone's needs. We strive to improve the quality of life of low-income and disadvantaged individuals and families by advocating for their needs and rights, providing services, educating the community, building a community of support, participating in coalitions with other advocates, and searching for new resources and partnerships. There's a great need for We Are Up. It addresses the lack of housing and the need for community for some of our most vulnerable populations. Groups that would benefit include adults under the age of 65 with a disability. Those make up 13.2% of our county's population, and seniors who make up 19.2% of our population. These rates are higher than the national averages, which are 8.7 and 6.8% respectively. That's coming from the 2020 census. McKinleyville has no supportive housing for adults with disabilities. Our county has a population density of 38 people per square mile, and this project aims to change this by developing an inclusive, intergenerational residential community with economic development and supports. such as job skill training, employment, and economic enterprises for adults on the autism spectrum and for those with physical, intellectual, and/or developmental disabilities, as well as for people without disabilities. This includes students, seniors pursuing social work, environmental health care studies, and temporary relocating medical staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was ready for 3 minutes.
No,
I almost made it.
I do recognize. No. It's true that I know many of you have prepared a 3-minute statement, and I'm reluctant to cut people off, but if we could try to keep it to 2 minutes, please do. Thank you.
Mr. Chair and Board, Scott Hammond, I'm a State Farm agent, father of 9, and first-time listener, first-time caller. And we have a son named Gabriel. Gabriel's 23 now. He's a little younger than Chris, and he's amazing. He's got autism and Down syndrome, and you're looking at the lucky guy, the blessed family who figured out the SDU law and got a house built during COVID for Gabe, and he's thriving. It's really magical. He's like doing great. So I really, if there was a way that Gabe could see his old man right now, like advocating for Gabe's buds, like Chris and different people, he couldn't get his mind around it, but I'd really like to see that. Maybe he'll get to do that one day. Having said that, I really envy you guys, because this is like, check all the boxes, John. It checks them all. It's easy. This is such an easy thing to say yes to. Everybody, these guys already did the work. And so with that, may you go forward and approve this quickly. And I know you got a process, and we honor that and appreciate you guys and all the hard work. And we'll see you on TV. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Ann Brack-Katz, and I'm a resident of 288 F Street in Arcata. And my personal experience at my current residence is living across the street from Arcata Bay Crossing, which consists of 31 affordable housing units. 15 of the units are assisted by funding from the Mental Health Services Act and are set aside for mentally ill, homeless, who have access to on-site supportive services, while the other 16 units are for qualified low-income households. We were supportive of the housing from its conception, with the belief that housing those with special needs, along with a mix of other homeless community members, could create a community of support, and we were not disappointed by the outcome. After 6 years, we have found good, caring neighbors whose lives we have watched improve by the way of secure housing and a supportive community close to services like stores, banks, clinics, and restaurants. The thoughtful vision of We Are Up benefits the community by offering secure housing to a diverse range of community members, offering them employment opportunities, by creating a welcoming community center, also including access roads and walking trails with community access, the riparian plantings offering improvements to this beautiful slice of earth for animals, plants, and people. The building, I think, is fantastic. Mary, thanks a million. I love it in my community, and I say go for it.
Thank you.
Hi, y'all. This is kind of scary. But members of the Planning Commission, thank you.
Excuse me, could you just pull the mic down just a little bit so I can make
'cause
sure
I'm
you're
short?
coming through?
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thanks.
My name is Joni Hammond, and I've been a resident of Humboldt County since 1979 and a resident of McKinleyville itself since 1986. Like many of us, I came up to go to college, loved it so much I never left. I'm still here. My husband and I have raised our children, and we feel like we have deep community ties. There's so much we love about Humboldt County, the people, the culture, recreation opportunities, maybe not the weather so much. There are so many benefits to living here, but there are also areas of unmet needs. And one of these areas is stable, comfortable, safe housing and community for people with disabilities, especially developmental or intellectual disabilities. Since our son was born 24 years ago with Down syndrome and later diagnosed with autism as well, we've grown increasingly concerned by the questions asked by every parent. What about the future? Where will my child live? What about a supportive community and friends? Will they have meaningful activities, a job? For typically developing young people, these questions almost answer themselves with just a little guidance from us. But for people with disabilities, these questions are far more difficult to answer, and often the answers are discouraging or even frightening. Housing is very hard to come by. Community is scattered. Learning and employment opportunities are limited, and enjoyable activities may be hard to access or just too expensive. We Are Up will offer one inclusive answer to these questions, and I'm filled with so much hope when I imagine a place where people like my son can live in safety and stability, surrounded by a community of both similar and varied friends and neighbors, and can have easy on-site access to learning and job skills opportunities, as well as enjoyable and meaningful and fun activities. So beyond that, the We Are application is wonderfully close to shopping and restaurants and the gyms and healthcare, all those places where many of our people will be walking and not driving. So the We Are Up project offers so many possibilities to members of a community who's been offered so little for too long. And I now have so much hope for the future. Thank you very much. Look at that, right on time.
Beautifully done.
I don't think I'll be that long. I'm Judy Hodgson. My husband and I have raised our kids here in Humboldt County. We ended up with 6 fantastic grandchildren. Unfortunately, 3 of them are on the autism spectrum. 2 will be just fine. They're mainstreamed, everything, and you would never know. And then there's Max, and Max is just this fantastically wonderful, happy 15-year-old kid. He will never be able to live on his own. So ever since Max was born and diagnosed, his parents have had one goal, is how to make enough money in their lives before they both, retire or, whatever. What are they going to do with Max? And they have their own ideas. I love Mary's idea. In fact, I think our autistic grandchildren are both about the same age, and they haven't met each other yet. But anyway, he's just a fantastic kid. Some of the things I like about this project, and I don't think, I know some of you might get hung up on the height of the building. All I want to say about that separately is we all need housing. We need more housing, we need all kinds of housing, and we need special needs housing. And the 35-foot versus 45-foot, if we don't build up, we have to build out. And I think they have really worked hard to mitigate all that. One more thing I love is the access to the transportation. These kids are not going to be driving cars, and these adults. And it is so cool to have it right by the bus. Okay?
Thank you.
I did take my 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. My name is Bryna Lipper. I'm the CEO of the Humboldt Area and Wild Rivers Community Foundation, and I'm really grateful for your time tonight. 2 years ago, the foundation adopted a new strategy based on years of study, analysis, and community input of our needs in this region. We found significant vulnerabilities, inequities, isolation, access to services, community belonging challenges, and issues with poverty that stemmed from many of those circumstances. This committee certainly knows that. We recognize through the kind of contribution that We Are Up would provide to the community an extraordinary asset. The quality of affordable housing that is at a significant deficit in this region. People who require special services, who are disabled, impaired, suffer more inequities, including that isolation, economic fragility, challenges in access to care, transit, and work. Investment in this area is publicly siloed, which is a terrible challenge you know about, seeking public money, philanthropic money, volunteer money, private development money. And the fact that the courage of this project leans into doing something that's not been demonstrated before should be deeply rewarded. And you're on the precipice of approving something that has been recognized by statewide and national philanthropy of my peers as being something that they're deeply motivated in doing in other parts of the country here. On a personal note, I recognize and I ditto what others have said, but I just say on a personal note, I moved to offer that my sister was someone with severe disabilities, and we would have faced this circumstance in our family had it not been for the kind of community that Mary talks about. She signed the American Disabilities Act under George H.W. Bush because of things like this. Please do this.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is David Adams. I'm a faculty member at Cal Poly Humboldt. I'm going to echo a lot what has already been said. Unfortunately, in the educational system, after the 12th grade or after someone graduates high school, they really become a forgotten person, individuals with disabilities. This program would allow, and we know from research that interventions improve skills for individuals with disabilities. We've seen it throughout. I actually run a program at Cal Poly Humboldt that Chris has attended for over 7 years since I've been there, him and many of his peers, and we've seen tremendous growth in terms of physical activity, social activity, and so I would urge that we take into great consideration about moving forward with this because of a forgotten community that I don't think is given the proper support needed. So in that saying, I will concede the last minute, but I hope you move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Kelly Eldridge. I'm a neighbor here. I'm not against the mission of the project, but I am against the size and the scale of the event center and the inadequate CEQA assessment that this project had. Please see the letter we provided. I'm requesting a postponement of this project approval until issues are addressed. A neighbor also requested a moderated meeting back in April to address issues, but no outreach resulted. A meeting would help address concerns and help future neighborhood cohesiveness. I am also a biologist with natural community mapping experience. The majority of the field was not assessed for natural communities, and there is a sensitive natural community out there that is imperiled in California, and it was not disclosed, and there are portions that will be impacted. Comment responses stated that it is small and does not warrant mapping. However, if you follow the guidelines, communities can be small, and it is also larger than stated if you follow guidelines. The fact that these communities were not mapped demonstrates the insufficiency of the CEQA document. Originally, it appeared the community center was for resident enrichment, which has since morphed into a large event center available to rent essentially every other weekend, which is not infrequent, and it can include amplified outdoor music, which no noise levels were given. And the community center space alone is 2 floors with 21,000 square feet for public use. Compared to this to Arcado, which is 8,800 square feet and can host large concerts. Impacts associated with large events, including traffic, noise, and parking, were not adequately analyzed or mitigated in the CEQA document. On traffic, there was no analysis. Factors weren't considered, including the water truck that fills up at MCSD, partially blocking Weirap with which can cause traffic and congestion and backups. These trucks may be there at any time, any day. For large-scale parking on Weirap, there is no west sidewalk, and people walk in the road, which is a safety concern. People parking make it difficult to pass, causing congestion and affecting emergency access. This was exemplified in a recent event. Also, I'll note that Weirap is private, and the road HOA notes it is intended for private use. It should be added to condition 20. And there are also many inconsistencies between documents, such as the site plan presented here today. And so, just in closing, approval of this project should be postponed until issues are addressed and the applicant has met with neighbors.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Shelley Lyle. I am a neighbor on Hideaway Court, most impacted by this project. I'm also an RN. I work with a disabled population, and I have 2 autistic members in my family. I think this is a fantastic project in many ways. There's not much new to say. I'd like to reinforce that I think it's really needed in our community, that it's important, that the heart of it is correct, and that there's some things that still need to be addressed. It's my understanding that the Humboldt County General Plan limits noise to 65 decibels, and that there's been no evaluation analysis provided and no maximum noise level given. The size of the community center as it has grown is concerning to me. I think it's fabulous to have these classes, to keep this population out of isolation, some really wonderful things. But the size of this event center and how it's going to impact the community and the noise levels have not been addressed adequately, as well as traffic and parking. So those are my concerns, and I hope that because this project is so important and addresses so many needs, that we won't gloss over doing it properly and addressing some of these things that haven't been adequately addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nancy Roberts. I'm a neighbor and with 3 autistic kids in the family. Okay, so I'm going to talk fast. No noise level. I'm going to talk about noise because I live across from on this wetland, and it's uncanny how the noise travels. I think this because there's no obstacles and it's wet. I mean wet. No noise levels were given, no noise study conducted, and it should have been part of the environmental impact study. I just consulted with a geophysicist. Actually, he wants to be called a sound level measurement expert. And so it's supposed to be, the event center is supposed to be 52 feet away from the nearest house. Well, an orchestra is 110 dBs, I can't say the word. And so 52 feet away from that would be still 96 dBs that we're going to be hearing 24 times a year. I'm asking that, yeah, I'll talk really fast. Okay, that there not be quite so many events, special events. And that it be quiet, that it be more study on and more environmental impact studies on the noise. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello, my name is Mr. Gregory Scott Wheatley. I'm 59 years old. I live in Arcata with my brother. I'm 37 years ago, I played guitar in a successful heavy metal band in San Diego. We shared a studio with the band, as you know, as Rat. In 1986, I had a car accident and changed my life dramatically. I flew through the windshield of my truck and hit a power pole on the freeway. I suffered a traumatic brain injury, aka TBI. I was in a coma for 2 months. The next 2 years recovering. With the help of my family and others, I relearned how to walk, talk, and eat. My balance and short-term memory have been severely damaged in my accident and are still today. I lived with my brain injury, support homes, and others just like me. I have improved. I went back home and I am with my family. Shortly thereafter, my mom died of cancer. My father suffered several strokes in which he was unable to care for me. I have lived with my brother Mark. Where'd he go? Oh, there. Back there. In my life, and he takes care of me. Unlike my teammates in Special Olympics, my friends in making headway have a place to live and someone who takes care of me. I am here to the voice of those who are I'm so lucky. We all succeed, need a place to live, and I urge this to approve this project. Anyone here tonight who find themselves disabled just like they could be tomorrow, where will you go? This is why support project in our community, and thank you for listening to my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. Mark Wheatley. I'm going to try and say how many times I support this project, wearing as many hats as I can. As a former elected official, I appreciate your all service. I really want to commend your staff and the consultant team and Mary for bringing this project together. This is a very well put together and well thought out project. As a former chair of HCOG, I think this meets many of our regional housing needs. our circulation, our walkability. It meets all those criterion boxes. As a former environmental and community planner, I will say that this is a tight analysis done on this thing. I know most of the comments centered around noise, biological resources, and traffic. This is a population that really does not drive, nor do they, and they are quite frankly adverse to a lot of noise, so sensitivity to noise is a major factor. Many projects I've been involved with, there is a revenue generating component. That is what makes or breaks projects like these sometimes. It's easy to build a project, it's much more harder to have them last in perpetuity, and that's the goal here. So, and I see former council member Stillman over there. We did an analysis looking at those kinds of facilities within our area. She probably is more familiar with those numbers than I. As a Special Olympics coach for many years, I can't tell you, I work with that population every day. My brother here is right in my own household. I also have a son. My son couldn't walk till he was 5. He has cerebral palsy. He just graduated last year from CR, and he was able to run track and cross country. So I am proud of his accomplishments, and we work together to bring the torch run to our area. So many others that are parents here have said the same thing that we all feel. What about tomorrow? And this is a model project. The people that are experts from the state here, I think, have spoke to some of those needs. I think we will look back, and this will serve as a model for our area and for others statewide. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I'll mirror a lot of things that have been said here tonight. I'll keep this brief. My name is Mallory McCurdy, and I've been a resident of Humboldt County for 50 years and manage a manufacturing company in Arcata. I gained interest in We Are Up because my niece has autism, and my 70-year-old mom, Mary Keene, has been raising her for the last 5 years. This project fills a huge need in the community and for my niece, and what I've seen since this project has begun is all walks of life coming together. I mean, Humboldt County is a melting pot of rednecks and hippies, and everyone is affected by this. And people have come together like I've never seen, and I'm honored to be a part of this project. My family resides in McKinleyville, not too far from We Are Up, and I volunteer. I'm passionate about the agricultural part of this project, and I'll continue volunteering with that. And I serve on the board as the treasurer. I also co-own a property that borders this project and support the plan in full, regardless of how it may affect the property we border it. Change isn't always easy, but when you see people from so many walks of life come together for a mutual cause, it's hard not to get behind it and do all you can to make those dreams come true. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Padre Roth. I'm married to the beautiful lady who just spoke, which makes me Mary Keene's son-in-law. Just have to say that all of us have somebody in our life, whether it's in our family, friends of ours family, we all know somebody that has autism or some kind of disability. And this is an amazing opportunity to help those people and those families. And that's all I have to say. I hope you guys vote yes on this. Actually, and Cash wanted me to bring up that he forgot when he was doing he's the architect, that a lot of the housing on the north side that's smaller, like the condos, those could be for people that don't like noise. Like some people that have disabilities that don't want a lot of noise. So that would be housing for those people instead of in like the big, 3-story part. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, good evening. My name's Sarah Ross. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Open Door Community Health Centers. Open Door serves 62,000 of our community members every year in Humboldt and Del Norte counties, and we recognize that affordable housing is a crisis in our region, and it affects our individual health, the health of our businesses, and the health of our community. As the organization that does provide the majority of primary, dental, medical, pregnancy services in our community, housing for our workforce has become an urgent priority, and we're not alone. Housing is a top concern shared by many local employers, including the 13 members of the North Coast Healthcare Leadership Committee. As the largest provider of primary care for our underserved and disadvantaged population, we see daily the negative health impact of lack of affordable housing that it has on our patients and their families. People cannot manage their health care needs unless they have a secure place to live and thrive. Open Door has been and will continue to be a partner in this effort. Our CEO, Tori Starr, is on the We Are Up board and is assisting in the development and sustainability planning for this community because we recognize the positive impact it will have on the overall health of the very vulnerable population in our area. We urge the members of the Humboldt County Planning Commission to support the approval of this vital project. Thank you for the opportunity to express our support of this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is James Clore. The Humboldt County General Plan housing element outlines a number of goals and policies that I thought I might highlight in relation to this project. Housing Goal 1, housing production, regulatory policies, practices, and financial incentives that promote the creation of affordable housing, protect the public health, safety, and welfare, promote clear development requirements, advance equity, minimize the environmental impacts of housing development, and reflect the goals and priorities of this plan. From my interpretation of this project, I see a lot of check, check, check. From minimizing environmental impacts, to advancing equity for adults with autism and other disabilities, to protecting public health, safety, and welfare by building an integrated community. Housing Goal 5, housing needs of special populations. Sufficient and affordable housing opportunities for seniors, disabled persons, homeless, nomadic, single-parent households, farm workers, and large families. Again, I think we can see the alignment is clear with this project. Policy Goal 2, flexibly apply development standards to low-income housing. The county shall support the flexible application of development standards through a streamlined permit process for housing people in lower income affordability categories and special needs populations. Again, the alignment is clear with this project and the stated goals and policies of our general plan. The housing element of the general plan outlines the need for 1,400 residential units to be built in the unincorporated areas to meet the projecting housing need for 2019 through 2027 time period. Annualized, that represents nearly 177 housing units per year. This project brings forward 50 residential units, nearly 1/3 of the projected housing units needed for this year. I encourage you to support this project, not just for the sake of our housing element, but for the sake of our community members with autism and disabilities looking for supportive long-term housing. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Tina Christensen. I'm a realtor in Humboldt County, and I was also the realtor who handled the sale of this property. I was on the phone prior to coming here with Kay Weirick, who sold the property. Kay's family owned all the way down Sutter to the turn, all the way down the other way. It was a big ranch, and Kay was delighted to hear that this property would go for some use like this. You know, this is such a special thing for Humboldt County. I wish every single city would do something like this for its community. Eureka, Arcata, Fortuna, we all have problems. Garberville, sorry. We all have these issues. We all have these problems. And you have an opportunity to pave a way for this to happen throughout our community. It doesn't just have to be McKinleyville. She came up with a dream, and we should be supporting it wholeheartedly. There should be no objections by neighborhoods or anything, because those neighbors wouldn't be looking at anything if it wasn't for the Weirick family selling. They sold to Furtado to build those houses. Before those houses, there's apartments. You know, you live in a mixed community. That's the way communities function. You put apartments with houses. You put your commercial first. You go from there. You go out to 5, 10-acre parcels. That's what creates communities. That's what creates our county general plan. And I think we all need to realize that and accept the great job she's done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Julie Fulkerson, retired business owner from a store in McKinleyville, and currently a resident of the city of Eureka. I just have to say, James Floor, thank you for doing your homework. You were the one person who actually did the study, which is important for all of us, and also for your comments about how this needs to be replicated throughout the county and throughout the country. I support this project fully. It was conceived by one of the finest minds and innovators and entrepreneurs of Humboldt County. Mary Keene created a business literally from scratch and turned it into a nationally acclaimed and award-winning Cypress Grove cheese, employing hundreds over the years and exporting it worldwide. She used the same thinking to solve housing needs for people who need ongoing care. She knows how to network, has drawn on broad support throughout the community. We Are Up is not just housing. It is designed with care for the land and the community as a whole, with integrated housing, mixed income rental capacity. She has thought of everything. An apple orchard is already in place. There will be edible landscaping, a greenhouse, livestock, and protection of open space. Personally, I know people who are ready to move in. We all do. We've heard from some of those people tonight. One of my dearest friends had a son who from birth was clearly going to need help. Her biggest concern throughout her entire adult life was what would happen if she died first. This is the sort of thing that will help families like this. I would love to have this project in my neighborhood. The project is something for McKinleyville and the entire region to be proud of. It will be a model of what is possible throughout the state of California. This could be the first, and the project needs your wholehearted support and commendation for the hard work and vision that is already in place.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paulette Kroll, and I'm a concerned registered public health nurse and home health nurse, albeit retired for a while. I've lived and worked in the healthcare field of Humboldt County for over 50 years, and I've continued interest in the well-being of our community. And I'm here this evening because I strongly support the We Are Up project, because it envisions a supportive and inclusive model of integrated living for both seniors and those with intellectual disabilities, while maintaining and nurturing not only the people involved, but the environment and the land on which it is developed. We know, and I personally as a home health nurse have seen, that isolating individuals, particularly seniors and those with disabilities, exacerbates health problems and creates an increased drain on our already challenged healthcare system, never mind on the individuals. And we saw this firsthand, all of us, during the COVID lockdown and its impact on all of us with isolation. This project offers a holistic and stable approach to housing, caregiving, and healthy living for our vulnerable seniors and individuals with disabilities, as well as for our community, our total community. By integrating the housing with diverse individuals, connecting seniors and people with intellectual disabilities for learning opportunities, and providing life skills development, we, the larger community of McKinleyville and Humboldt County, benefit along with those residents. I believe the health of all will be improved through decreased isolation and increased community connections. Having healthier functioning residents living in and interacting with our community will reduce the strain on our healthcare system. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you all keeping to the 2 minutes.
I'm even lower. Good evening. My name is Heather Vina, and I am a business owner in McKinleyville. I am also a neighboring property owner to the We Are Up project. In addition, I am the former CEO of the McKinleyville Chamber of Commerce and have been a champion for the town of McKinleyville for many years. When I see something that is needed in the community, I'm usually there helping out. So I have been volunteering with the We Are Up project since it began, even though I do not have anyone in my family that has special needs, but I have seen the needs of those who have these issues. This project will add value to the community and enhance the neighborhood while meeting the needs of people with disabilities and seniors in an integrated community, all while maintaining much of the natural spaces. I look forward to working closely with my We Are Up neighbors to better our community. Thank you for listening, and I hope you will adopt the conditions set forth by the Planning Department.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name's Hannah Winans. I had something prepared, but I'm not going to spare everybody. I'm just going to make it quick. So I am a broker owner of a real estate company within a half mile of this project. I also I'm a McKinleyville resident, live within about a half mile of this project. When I first heard about the We Are Up project, it took me about 5 seconds to decide that I wanted to be involved because I know who the people are that are behind it, and I understand the need that we have in our community. I think as Heather had mentioned, Heather Bergen from the Humboldt Association of Realtors, we have their support. That's a huge organization to be behind this. I think Tina Christensen was so eloquent in her talking about that Kay this would have been a purpose for the property that Kay would have loved. I think that we have an opportunity right now to do something great in this room, and so I really hope that you take advantage of that and support We Are Up. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Alex Stillman, and I know change is hard, and it's very hard for all of us because we have to do things that we aren't used to, and we will have changes all day in our lives because that's what it's about. But I know that everyone can't do that easily, and I know that this project will help what we need to have in our community and changes where we are in our life in this county, and we need housing of all kinds. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gregory Rowe. I'm a teacher at Arcata High School. I'm a special ed teacher, and my particular field in teaching is life skills. And I have the privilege of working with students. I've worked with students at McKinleyville High School, at Arcata High School, and summer school during the whole year. Students between the ages of 14 and 22 years old. And students with extensive needs. And I've been really excited about the We Are Up project. It's a super important project, and a number of students that I've known throughout the years and people in the community would really benefit from inclusion in this project. I wrote like a novel to share with you tonight, but I'm cutting it short, and I tried to highlight a couple things on my phone. You've heard from so many great voices of support here tonight. I haven't seen this kind of support in the community during this many years that I've been here in Humboldt since I moved here. It's pretty amazing. And so I'm just going to read to you like my final paragraph quickly. As a society, that we've decided to support our fellow citizens and our families and our brothers and sisters, our fellow citizens that have special needs. And so we've agreed to equal access for all of our citizens. And We Are Up is a great project, creative and practical solution that can help our community as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening, and always grand people of our Humboldt County. I am Steve Davis, the firstborn son of Ralph L. Davis, DDS, our first dentist in McKinleyville, and my dear mother, the Rose of Roseburg. My father is passed, but we as a family have a legacy of serving our community and beyond with very wonderful memories of grand trips to the Hammond Trail, to Clam Beach, and we live with easy driving distance of this fine property. And I just want to voice my sincere, wholehearted support for this project and hope that as soon as others will step forward and learn from Mary and her excellent team what to do to build 5 or 15 or 15 more satellite homes and group homes with the high calling of bringing together people from different perspectives and learning abilities so everyone can continue to have our best efforts at egalitarian living and high quality of life that I just thank God Almighty for the privilege of being raised here and living here, and hope that more and still more people will enjoy this great land that God has given us. Thank you for your support for this and other projects like it.
Thank you. And yes, go ahead, sir.
Sorry, I can't stand in line.
No problem.
My name is John Boak. I've lived here since I was 6 months old. I'm 70 now. Ditto to all of this. Who could not love this? This is all emotional testimony. It's not facts. It's emotional, but they're facts. It's real. It's very real. We all want it. The neighborhood wants it. What the neighborhood doesn't want is the problems it brings with it. They're not addressed in the CEQA document properly. CEQA documents are important. It covers a lot of stuff that we're not supposed to sidestep. Usually it's messing with the land and the trees and where we build a road. It doesn't usually involve what the problem is here, or at least my concern. Noise and traffic. The 215 people that are going to be allowed to come to this project, to these events, 24 times a year, that is significant. And life's not about problems, it's about solutions. Nobody wants to kill this project. How about a solution? They need a solution. If they don't have a solution, they have an enemy with the neighborhood. We don't want to be their enemy. We want to be their neighbors. But this problem needs to be addressed, and it's not addressed in the CEQA document, and that's dangerous. It's dangerous for our county. It's dangerous for everyone. That is supposed to be addressed. It's not. Where are the 215 people going to put their cars? How are they going to get there? On a horse? Horses can park there. That's all. Thank you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir. Okay. I don't see anyone else waiting to speak in person, so I'm going to close the in-person public comment. We do have several, now 6 hands raised on Zoom. I would urge you, those of you on Zoom, to be very brief if you can, just because we are at 9 o'clock nearly. We really only have another half an hour. I want us to be able to come to a decision on this project. So, but with that, I will open it to public comment on Zoom. You have up to 2 minutes at max. Colby Smart, please go ahead.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Colby Smart, and I'm the Deputy Superintendent at the Humboldt County Office of Education, and I strongly support We Are Up. Autism has risen dramatically in Humboldt County over the last 10 years. In addition, Humboldt County's special education rates are almost double the state of California. Schools are often a reflection of a community's values, aspirations, and challenges. Like schools, We Are Up is also a reflection of our community's values and aspirations and helps solve for some very important challenges. If we want all members of our community to thrive, we need innovative programs like We Are Up. We Are Up is built on belonging and inclusion of all members of our community, including students, autistic youth, seniors, and more. It's innovative and has an integrative approach. It is built through community partnership. I have toured the site with Mary and believe in the vision and the impact it will have on our community, in particular for people with special needs. It helps to create a continuum of support for vulnerable community members once they leave school. I am so impressed with this vision, leadership, and commitment of all partners involved in the project. As a County Office of Education, we look forward to partnering with We Are Up and exploring the many ways we can work together in service to our community. On a personal level, my administrative assistant, Minnie Ballister, has an amazing 10-year-old daughter with autism. She has a unique lens that I do not have. So I asked her thoughts on this project, and she replied, well, she often worries about what comes next once her daughter comes of age. Many of the services that she benefits from end at age 18. Socializing is such an important part of the pro-social development of people with autism.
Sir, if you could wrap it up, please. I'm sorry, just because we're running out of time for the meeting.
Fine. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Steve Croteau. I'll give you a 30-second warning. I think that's helpful for Zoom. Go ahead, Mr. Croteau.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Hey, my name's Steve. Definitely a great project. I'm in support. There are some concerns related to the traffic analysis and the ISM&D. I think it might have been said earlier that maybe a formal BMT, vehicle miles traveled analysis, wouldn't be required, but per SB 743, one is, the ISM&D does not adequately estimate or justify the average daily trips associated with BMT. Critical assumptions on how calculations were made are not cited or backed up, and elements were excluded that likely resulted in the lower BMT that we can otherwise potentially expect. Let's see, the ISM&D states that trips associated with the 24 special events, which would be up to 215, which is already 215 people, which was already mentioned, were not including analysis as they would be part of the conditional use permit. However, under CEQA, this would be considered piecemealing, as elements were intentionally left out. The analysis was inadequate. In the county's response to comments, a few more trips were added to the analysis based on very low assumptions while still excluding some of the elements of the project. For the calculation, 14 of 24 events, hosting an average of 120 guests, was used to calculate daily trips. Since up to 24 events could occur per year, likely clustered in the warmer months, a more appropriate approach would have been to assume all 24 events with anticipated maximum guest numbers. Also, the response to comments state that classes held on site would be for residents only and would not generate additional traffic. However, in the project description and staff report, it states that classes may be available to others from the community at large in the future with about 50 guests maximum.
30
These are
seconds left.
reasonably foreseeable events. Under CEQA, they should have been included in the analysis. If daily trips are calculated using numbers that might actually occur, trips would likely be well over the OPR technical advisory significance threshold of 110 daily trips. Realistically, the daily trips could be closer to 200. Traffic will likely impact adjacent residences, and adequate analysis should be conducted. As I stated earlier, I'm in support of the project. I think it's great. However, please do not approve this project until the adjacent property owners' concerns and all CEQA concerns have been adequately addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Public 3493, you have 2 minutes. Public 3493. We can't hear you. We'll go to the next person. Raise your hand again if you are able to unmute. Or anyway, let's move on to Eric. Eric, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Eric, and my wife, kids, and I have lived on Hideaway Court, which is the 20-plus family neighborhood adjacent to the proposed community center, since its development over 14 years ago. Just to be clear, not a single one of our neighbors are against the project's goal of providing autistic or developmentally disabled folks on this property. Where we do have issue, however, is the immense size and scope of the community center and all the noise, parking issues, and other disturbances it brings that I won't bother repeating and have been said much more succinctly. The massing animation that was played earlier is one of the first times we've seen just how massive this building will be in our small neighborhood. No one from this project has reached out to us or any neighbor we've talked to, despite what was said on some of the documents. This community center is too large and too obtrusive for our quiet neighborhood. We urge the members to require a drastic downsizing of the community center to fit the use of the on-site residents only and not a for-profit event center that is incompatible with the area. Again, no one is against the housing component of the We Are Up project. What we are against, though, is the size and scope of the community center. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Public 9535. You have 2 minutes. Public 9535. I'm not hearing you. Same problem we had. Oh. Are you there? It's not something to do with the phone connection, is it? Public 9535, I'm sorry, we aren't hearing you.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear you. Yes.
Sorry. Sorry. Hi, this is Connie Stewart. And I live in Arcata, but I just want to, I'm going to move this along quickly and say me too. To a lot of what I can't, in 40 years, I can't believe that I'm speaking on the same side of Tina Christensen. I wish I was in the room and I could give her a big hug. But I'm so in support of this project, and I just want you to, see the breadth of community people that are in support. I do want to mention that conditions 21, 22, and 23 do speak to noise. And I also want the neighbors to know, like, when I look at this community center, I work at Cal Poly Humboldt. I put on 3 events a year that would have more than 100 people. They're all done by 5 p.m. And I would hope that I could rent this facility. So I do want you to think that there could be a lot of events that end by 5 or 6 p.m. and they all don't have to have booming noise or a large large people roaming around outside. I think that is the wonderful thing about the way the community center is being designed. It's just the kind of facility I've been dreaming of for some of the events Cal Poly puts on. I will leave it at there, and I apologize to Mary and all of you that I was in the room today, but and thank you the Planning Commission for allowing us to testify this way. Take care. All the best to all of you.
Thank you very much. 2 more hands raised. Dan, you are up. You have 2 minutes. Dan, can you unmute?
I apologize for that.
Oh,
My name is Dan.
Yes, I can hear you. Good.
Good. Daniel Escajeda, and I live on Hideaway Court, and absolutely agree with the passion and the interest that have been expressed here. Like everybody else, I do have folks in my own family, my brother and my nephew actually on the spectrum. This could be very much a model project for other locations, but there's always a however, and no project is perfect. We're Up is a private street. It is a little 2-lane road, and all the streets adjacent to it, the tributaries that it is, are private streets as well. When you look at 24 events taking place over the course of a year with 200 people going down to a little stop sign, the traffic considerations are considerable. Nowhere in the project are these addressed in a formal study, and similarly, nowhere is there a noise study that is done to deal with the unavoidable noise that will be created by weddings late into the night. Also, when you look at the parking that's been made available, it's across Sutter Road, which is a very busy artery itself, and I can imagine pedestrians being exposed to unnecessary safety concerns crossing that street, particularly after a 10 o'clock closure of an event. So I would ask that the project right-size the community center.
30 seconds, sir.
Right-size the community center to something more fitting the area. If the Arcata Center, it's 1/5 the size, why not that size? And also traffic and noise controls need to be instated. Otherwise, we should continue until these are addressed. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, sir. And now Brian Battalocci, and then Public 3493, and then we're going to close Zoom public comment so that we do have time to move forward with this.
Hello, my name is Brian Battalocci,
I live in the neighborhood of Hideaway Court. I think this is a great project. I'm totally not against it. Me and my neighbors are concerned about downsizing, just a little bit downsizing. It doesn't have to be so extravagant. I mean, it's a great project, but I think if we downsize the project, we don't have to worry about the extra crazy permits for the height. We don't have to worry about the extra controls for the traffic and the noise. It's all going to be, it all should fall into place by itself. This simple fact that it's smaller, because bigger is not always better. And I think that just downsizing, everybody can get along. I think everybody can respect each other. That's about all I got.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, sir. And since 3493, you were trying to speak before and we couldn't hear you, I'm going to give you one more chance. Public 3493, are you able to hit *6 to unmute? *6 should unmute your phone. There.
Hello?
Yes, now we can hear.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Connor, and I'm a former Arcata Planning Commissioner and current chair of the Humboldt County Housing Authority. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak and for your service. I won't go into detail as others have described, and as you well know, there's a serious housing shortage of all kinds in Humboldt County. And as many speakers have well spoken about, there's a particularly acute need for housing for the sectors that the We Are Up project wants to address, will address. To summarize what others have said, I'll shorten it to the county is very fortunate to have this project come forward. As to the specific issues before your planning commission tonight, the conditional use permit and the special use permit, We Are Up has taken many significant proactive measures and done several redesigns in response to the concerns of neighbors and the issues raised by the planning department and their own studies. And they've done that at considerable expense for their nonprofit. As to the issues raised by neighbors, not that we're not sympathetic, change is hard, but noise, wetlands, traffic, I simply refer you to your staff report about the levels of mitigation required based on the analysis that they provided to back up those conclusions. So this project will provide much needed housing for special needs populations.
30 seconds,
and it's
ma'am.
an infill project. Thank you. And all of these comport and are in agreement with your county general plan and housing element. So I think that all of the significant community issues have been conditioned, mitigated, or addressed, and therefore I urge your commission to approve both the conditional use permit and the special use permit for We Are Up. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all who have commented. With that, I am going to close the public comment part of this hearing and bring it back to the commission. We don't have a lot of time left. Commissioner Mulder.
Don't we usually give the applicant 5 minutes for any rebuttals if needed?
If you have questions.
Yes, Commissioner Mulder is correct. That is our practice. But if you're willing to forego that and just answer questions as we have them, I would like to not run out of time to move this forward. But yes.
Then I have a specific question
Okay.
for who deals with which person on GHD is the parking expert? Okay, if you could please come to the podium just to clarify that I read this in the staff report. From what I'm reading in the staff report on page 6 and 7, there's 132 spaces on site, and there's up to 68 parking spaces off-site within 650 feet or less. Is that correct information that's in the staff report?
That's correct information. Of the mentioned number of parking spaces, 55 of them are lawn parking for events. Only 77 are permanent parking. On site, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. The people they did. They come together. Yeah, they do all come together. The ones that have a number at the end, those are the phone callers. So, other comments, thoughts, questions?
I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's worked on this project and everyone who took the time to speak tonight. It's hard to get up in that podium or call in, and we really appreciate everyone taking the time to come and share all of your thoughts with us. This is the kind of project, like everyone has said, that it's a laudable project, and I'm excited to see it.
Commissioner Mitchell.
Given the late time, I think it would be best if we get a motion on the floor and speak specifically to the motion. Does anyone object to that approach? Hearing none, I am honored to make a motion that we adopt the resolution, which says the following. Adopt the mitigated negative declaration prepared for the We Are Up project and find the proposed project complies with the general plan and zoning ordinance and approve the conditional use permit and special permit subject to the recommended conditions of approval.
Second.
Great. We have a motion and a second. Discussion on the motion, and thank you for moving us forward with that. Lawrence, did you have?
I have a statement. Or a question, I guess it is. So we heard a number of claims that speak or allege inadequacy of the environmental work. I personally feel qualified enough to dismiss 2 of the 3 based on my reading and knowledge. But can you, just as staff, assure us, and if you feel the need, point out anything that was brought up that concerns you, but can you just go over the ways that we are mitigating the noise specifically related to the special events?
Is one of them. Condition 22 is one of them.
Yeah, so through the chair, one of the things that I want to point out, and it was mentioned in the initial study, but the operative CEQA standard of review is whether the noise would violate a standard set by the general plan. And so that's why it's referenced in the staff report that the general plan does allow for noise to exceed the standards that it sets forth for operations on a temporary basis, subject to a conditional use permit. And the conditional use permit is what allows for the county to establish conditions to attempt to address concerns that the neighborhood may have. And so there's a number of conditions that the county is recommending in the staff report. Just want to point out a couple of them. Condition of approval number 21 requires each event to sign a contract governing the use of it, including specific noise restrictions and the owner's right to immediately cancel the event if noise is excessive. Additionally, the
louder.
Do you know the other noise ones? Sorry, and condition of approval number 22 actually requires the operator to provide contact information to all neighbors within 300 feet of the property as a way to inform them that if they are experiencing disturbances. There is also conditions of approval that would require reporting to county staff regarding those, any concerns that have been raised.
Thanks. Commissioner Mulder.
I just wanted to add in condition 22, the way I read it too, is also any person that spoke at the public hearing would be provided that contact information. That's what I have in my packet here. And then I did read a lot of concerns, and I heard concerns around the community center, but in the presentation and from the way I read the packet, this project is basically not going to last if the community center isn't part of it. So it's either community center, in my opinion, with the project, or don't approve the project at all, because in my opinion, I feel it'd be set up for failure if we took out the community center. So that's why I'm in support of the motion.
And I just want to add that the folks here representing the projects are being very humble and polite. I was a bit frustrated at the extent to which they were willing to sacrifice the potential financial viability and the smooth running of this to do their best to address the community concerns. And pushing upwards and as far away from both the wetlands and the neighbors made it so that the fewest folks would have any visual impacts. And just for context, it's directly behind, the community center is directly behind where the grocery store in McKinleyville, the grocery outlet. So it's already in sort of a commercially zone. And the request to go higher is to not build a monstrosity, but rather to not have a sprawling project that would have more impacts on wetlands and community view sheds. So I just want to say, I don't believe they're being greedy. I believe that they should have asked for more square footage because the need is absolutely staggering. But they wanted to be respectful and not ask for more that they could have gotten entitled.
Commissioner West?
I just wanted to piggyback on a quick note with that. I think considering, I also had considerations about the noise and thought about it. And I think there's also a natural check. We're adding 50 plus residents onto this property that will be impacted by any noise that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And the project is built to serve you can't have one without the other. And so you couldn't have too much noise to impact the housing in that same way. So I felt comfortable knowing that the property owner and the organization running it is going to be very invested in the comfort of the residents in addition to the neighborhood.
Yeah, I'll just add briefly. I really do second what has been said. I think this project has been scaled down a lot already to mitigate the impacts. I think, from what I can tell, it's the best use of this property that probably could be made, and it's been done in a way that really will attempt to minimize the impacts on the surrounding neighborhood and on the habitat. And we're actually seeing numbers here that is the sort of maximum build-out scale of events in terms of number of events, side of events. As some have noted, they won't all run late. They won't all have 200 people. There is off-site parking to accommodate any parking impacts. It seems like that there are backup plans to deal with these issues as they arise. So I'm ready to support this project. Okay. With that, I would like to call for a roll call, I guess a voice vote on this project, on this motion that's on the table, made by Commissioner Mitchell, seconded by Commissioner Mulder.
Commissioner Levy?
Yes.
Commissioner Landry?
Yes.
Commissioner Mulder?
Yes.
Commissioner Mitchell?
Yes.
Commissioner West?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0 with one recused. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. But thank you all for the hard work that went into this. Thank you for your testimony. We do have one more very quick item that I would like to cover. I think we can do so quickly before we close the meeting.
We do have planning commissioner discussion items as well.
Well,
Can I
because I
just
have
say
two
one
items.
quick thing?
Then I think we can.
I didn't say thanks before I sat down because I thought I was coming up again, so thank you all.
Thank
and
you.
you guys.
Yes, thank you. And yes. Sorry that I didn't call you back up again. I was just wanting to make sure we got through it. But thank you. Okay, yes. So that we don't leave any business unfinished, we have Commissioner Skavdal back. I would like us to now just very briefly give the opportunity for perhaps a brief question about the item that was pulled. That was Rock and Sky LLC. I don't know that we need a staff report, but Commissioner Mitchell, did you have a question that you wanted to ask about this?
So I wanted to go through the staff report, but given the lateness of the night and the fact that no one else pulled it, I'm willing to abstain so that we can just move on.
Okay. Does anyone else feel the need for a staff report, or can we go ahead and just vote on that as it appeared?
I do own a residence in Bembo. I do drive by this area, but I don't see it's going to affect me monetarily one way or the other.
Okay.
So,
if there's no other need for discussion, then I would entertain a motion to, sorry? Oh, gosh, I'm sorry.
I do have
Yes, I do want to now offer the opportunity for the public in the room or on the phone to comment on Rock and Sky LLC General Plan Amendment. And Joan, sorry? And that is the applicant. Yes, okay, sir, would you like to speak to this project?
Yeah, I'll just answer any questions as they come up.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone on Zoom or the phone that wishes to comment on this project? Okay, seeing none, I will close public comment, but the applicant is available if we have any questions. Anyone need to do that? Oh, yes. Commissioner Mulder.
Just in here, I just want to note that it's not 100% clear, but maybe I'm misreading it, that Public Works did have issues with the roadway network, and I'm assuming any stuff would go to the planning or building department would sign off on any roadway network to move forward.
I'm not entirely sure what the question was regarding.
I am familiar with it.
Okay.
I did follow up with Public Works on that comment regarding what they meant by review, and they said, well, you did it. You're asking. And there was really no more. Their concern was that roads are failing and that they actually support this because they don't want residential development there. So that's really all they had to say.
Okay, I'm good.
Any others? Then I would entertain a motion.
I move that we adopt the resolution, which does the following: make all the required findings for approval based on evidence in the staff report and public testimony, and recommend the Board of Supervisors approve the general plan amendment and zone reclassification subject to the recommended conditions of approval.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner West, seconded by Commissioner Skavdal. Any further discussion before we vote? Can we get a voice vote on this item then? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Say nay. Anyone abstaining?
Abstain.
Okay, so the motion passes 5-0 with one abstention. And the Rock and Sky project is approved as with staff recommendations. We're just about out of time, but if we can be very quick about it, I think we could still ask Director Ford, is there anything you wanted to report or bring our attention to?
I was going to give a report. Commissioner O'Neill had asked about the status of the county's housing efforts relative to, I believe it's SB 35. I would ask your indulgence to give that when she is present.
Sure.
And then just update you, the board acted on an extension of the moratorium on recognizing short-term rentals this last Tuesday, and they did not extend that.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for those items. Anything else?
Nothing else comes to mind.
Okay. Yes, so I will just also give the commission opportunity under item J, Planning Commission discussion items. If any of you had things you wanted to bring up, Commissioner Mulder.
Two. I don't know. I mean, this is me being ticky-tacky, but cleanliness. I've stared at a piece of gum that's left here on the thing, whoever sits here. I don't know if someone cleans this up afterwards or not. And the other one is, can we have an agenda item to request the the county gets a 30-second dinger? Because I think that would be very, very.
Just has to be.
Oh.
Okay, sure. That I don't know how to use that, but I could be taught, and then I can.
Just throw it out there. I think it'd be helpful for commenters to hear that ding. I know when I public comment, it's nice to hear that ding. It makes you refocus real quick.
Mm-hmm. Good suggestion. Thanks. Commissioner Scabdall.
I'm not convinced that having items pulled from consent moved to the end of the meeting is the best idea. People show up expecting their item to be on consent calendar. Then we pull it. They have to wait through the whole meeting, and there's a chance that they won't be heard, like almost happened today. So it's not fair to anybody that, unfortunately the meetings tend to run over, but if something's on consent and it gets pulled, I think it still deserves to be heard in that meeting, and moving that to the end of the meeting could pose a problem.
Appreciate that. Commissioner Mulder. Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I wanted to offer a counterpoint argument that the items that are usually put at the very end of the meeting are the items that are the most contentious, the items we expect to have like a massive discussion about. And when we start talking about those at 9 p.m., I don't think that those meaty, important topics get enough of our brain resources, if you'll allow me that term. So I think that items that are pulled are either not ready to go in the first place, or there's just a simple question. And so that's something that is easier for us to contemplate and resolve toward as it gets later. I don't like having to debate countywide policies always like shoehorned into the 9:15 slot, or, Thank you.
Mulder, Commissioner Mulder.
So, backstory of why that was moved, from my perspective, I could be wrong, is there was a lot of items being pulled from consent, and then that came in after old business. So the projects, a lot of times, the old business were projects that were pulled from consent the previous meeting, and I think that's why we got in that history of like someone was pulled off consent, we didn't get to their project, and then that's why we moved it after old business but before new business, I believe, but I could be 100% wrong.
Director Ford.
If I could, thank you, Chair. The reason we did it tonight was because we had two items. One was old business. I think the commission promised them that they would be heard first at this meeting, and we knew there was going to be public comment. We knew the second one was going to have significant public comment, and so and a portion of that population were going to be people that would struggle sitting in the audience for a long period of time. So we're just trying to accommodate that tonight.
No, I certainly understand having that flexibility to when you can see what's on the agenda, being able to do that. I just was commenting on it as a matter of routine.
Which I welcome, yeah.
I think matters pulled from consent should be dealt with quickly, but one would expect it would be right after the consent calendar. But if I'm the minority opinion there, that's understood. And I'm not trying to make a bigger issue out of it.
I absolutely take your point. I
touch bases on it.
I think let's go ahead and keep it in this order for another meeting or two and assess. That would be my suggestion. Because it is, as Commissioner Mulder pointed out, if it's not at least after the old business, then things get pulled, can sometimes be delayed for multiple meetings. And I guess my thought too was having the pulled items be late would discourage us getting too far into the weeds and really incentivize us to keep it brief and to the point. But you're quite right that this almost prevented us from handling something that really most of us thought was pretty routine. So, but with that, let's keep it this way for at least the next meeting or two, and then reassess. Okay? And with that, thank you all for your patience with my missteps tonight. But if there's nothing else, then we will. I'm sorry? Oh, did you? Oh, I didn't miss that.
Oh,
I'm
it's
sorry.
fine. It wasn't. I'm of two minds, so I would appreciate
Yeah,
having
no,
time for a more robust discussion after we try it for a little bit.
Great. Yes, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off from commenting on that. But I agree with you. I think we should try it for a couple meetings and then see what happens and then have time to discuss it. Okay? With that, let's call it adjourned at 9:33. And we'll see you on August 3rd.